Hey guys, Adam aka CSRadical here, and thanks for joining us on this edition of the VCR Podcast. A quick note before we get to the show here. So this is an old recording that we did a couple of months ago. We met with Mike from North Wolf Games, who we met at the EGLX convention in Toronto, and the interview itself went very well. This is a 2-hour podcast that went phenomenally well. We were all very happy with it. However, when I went to edit the show, it turned out that the recording had a massive mess to it. So initially when we did the setup to this show, we had problems with the mixer not feeding into Audacity. And in a fit of just trying to quickly put something together to make this work, I found an old audio channel that I had used for a prior project and fed it through that. And when I did the test, everything seemed fine, but if I had actually listened to that test audio for more than 5 seconds, I would have noticed that there was a trial message every 5 to 10 seconds of the recording. So that was completely scrapped. I tried to edit it together with the webcam audio footage that we had, but it went to no avail. So this entire podcast is coming off of the webcam microphone that we recorded with. So people directly into the microphone, and thank God that it was Mike of all people. So our guest is heard perfectly well, but people like me and Adam Trump are not quite as loud because we were to the side of the webcam. Thankfully, by turning the volume up at least high enough that we are able to hear everybody, it just may be louder in some places than it would be in others. So we apologize for the mistake here. We apologize for the unprofessionalism to it, and thankfully this is a lesson that we will certainly not make again, because you make a mistake that big once, you sure as shit ain't gonna do that again. But again, we apologize to you guys. We apologize to Mike especially, because we wanted this to be the best podcast as it could be, and I hope in listening to this you guys agree that it really is, in my opinion, our best podcast we've ever done. So with that being said, guys, I apologize one more time, and let's just get to this show.
You have entered the realm of the VCR Podcast with your host, Fish.
They're just bastardizing our childhood and the classics.
Chris.
Nintendogs drove me. It's what makes me want to hurt people.
Radical.
People in general still bitch about everything. It still doesn't change.
Let the podcast begin.
Hey everybody, how's it going? This is the VCR Podcast, the only podcast that is solely predated the moment the title is spoken. So, VCR here in the house. I almost said I'm
You
Fish.
almost just called yourself
Whoa.
Fish. Whoa.
Whoa!
Whoa.
I just gotta say, have some self-respect.
That is true.
I don't say, fuck you.
So we got Fish over here, we got Chris over here, Radical is right there, Adam Trump here with us today, and you'll notice there's a fifth for some reason. How do we do this?
All right, we would like to introduce a special guest, Mike from North Wolf.
So we went to EGLX last weekend, and we mingled with a few people. We may not have prostituted ourselves several times over the course of that afternoon.
Not my first weekend doing that.
Or lost.
Did you buy him?
No comment. He doesn't buy. Well, maybe.
I don't buy, I win.
You can afford it.
What about Stormy Daniels?
That was free.
Don't be rude. Don't be.
So I feel like I have to quarter this up here, because Trump is not our guest today. So we do have Mike from North Wolf, the solo developer, from what I understand.
That's correct,
of
yeah.
Hellbound.
Yep.
So how are you doing today? How was EGLX?
Excellent, guys. Thank you for having me. Yeah, EGLX was great. It was actually really busy. Just the whole preparation of the game took about 2 months without sleeping, and then, being there was really great to meet all the fans and then meet you guys as well. So
Yeah.
it was really good.
And it's okay. Sleep's overrated.
I'll sleep when I die.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, there is the part in my head where it's like, I know I'm supposed to have 8 hours, but I mean, every time I look at the clock, I'm like, but I can just watch one more episode of the show, right? It's just 7 hours
Exactly.
is still good.
It's like,
And then you're playing a really good game, you're like, 6 is okay. I can do 1 day 6 this week.
Yeah, it's gonna be the
and
same
then,
feeling when you're
then
building
you're playing
a game.
a really,
It is,
really
yeah.
good game, and you're like, oh, I'll sleep tomorrow.
When I'm playing Madden, and I'm in franchise mode, really I only get about 3 to 4 hours of sleep, because then I play Madden, I sleep, I get up, and I make America great. It was just totally phenomenal. We have a special guest here tonight. This is fantastic. I've seen special guests before, but Mike, you're a total winner.
And you have been a special guest
I'm a
as well.
special. I know. I'm
Yeah, he's
fantastic. And now, Mike, this is great.
He used to be a special guest, and I thought I was going to call him a special guest, but he just keeps showing up, no matter how many times we tell him not to.
Just like
I think
real
he just
Trump.
now-
Yeah, just I go where I'm allowed to. I show up.
We don't want you as a prison. I'm here.
Yeah, he just shows up.
So we had the chance to go see a bit of the game when we went to EGLX. Now, you were way into it because you are a Castlevania kind of guy.
Oh, I already know him.
Castlevania.
Awesome.
I'm already playing it.
So I
on whatever
imagine for
platforms
you,
it comes out.
growing up, Metroid and Castlevania must have been pretty big influences on you as well.
Absolutely, yeah. The first game that I bought with my own money was Castlevania for Game Boy, Belmont's Revenge.
Oh yeah.
So Castlevania was a huge in my life, as well as Diablo. Diablo 1 was mind-blowing when it came out.
Diablo 1 and Diablo 2 are probably
Yeah.
two of
I
my
like
favorites.
how
Absolutely.
did you get influenced by Cloud from Final Fantasy for the main sword?
I did, yes.
Oh.
Yeah,
Yeah, I
absolutely.
didn't notice that at all. It's just Cloud Sword, but like
Blue.
really, really shiny blue.
So it was
Exactly.
Cloud Sword and then from Demon Souls as well.
Yeah.
When you get the Great Sword,
It's
was just-
Cloud's sword, but as a lightsaber.
huh?
Because it's blue.
Yes.
Yeah.
So this game seems too dark for it to be like a Jedi guy as the main character. It feels like it should be glowing blue.
Yeah,
right
I
at this point.
definitely think
But
it's
you're missing one thing. Anakin Skywalker's lightsaber was.
I don't remember, and I don't like the sequel trilogy.
Whatever color the blood of those children were.
Well played. But before that, it was blue. Because the lightsaber.
But does anybody really care that his was blue? Because what do you really remember it for now?
Oh, but it was blue because that's part of the story, because that's the lightsaber that Luke gets at the beginning of A New Hope.
But all that really matters is Mace Windu's was purple and it looked fucking awesome.
Yes. Yes.
But yeah, no,
Bad
Anyways.
motherfucker.
definitely you were way into it. What caught my eye was the art style.
I love
And
it.
I think you were telling us too when we were there that you actually hadn't any drawing experience before you started.
Absolutely zero. I couldn't draw stick figures like 2.5 years ago.
So how did you end up getting up to that point?
I had no choice. So what happened was basically I was going to hire somebody, and my wife and I, we decided to move to Spain, and we were there. And I was looking to hire an animator and artist, and I couldn't find anybody. So in the meantime, I just started drawing. It was terrible, just to kind of make something as a placeholder. And then it got a little bit better and a little bit better. And then after 6 months, my wife said, "Why don't you just put it on YouTube and just see the reaction of people?" And I did. And then the first comments you read is like, "This looks great." I was like, "What?" I'm like, somebody's trolling me. And then the second comment, "This looks great." So I had received a lot of comments that this looks great, and so I continue with it, and I really like the way that I'm drawing now. But yeah, it's still far from perfect.
Honestly, I think it looks amazing.
No,
The
thank
art
you.
style of the game, it's incredible.
Especially
Like
when
that's
it's
what
so
drew me
project.
to it.
Thank you so much,
Good.
yeah.
And did you find the artwork the more tasking and tedious part, or did you find the programming more?
So
Complicated.
coming from programming background, but I never touched AI, I never touched pathfinding, so I had to learn all of that stuff. It was hard. Yeah, definitely. Art, coming out with art, especially when you look at everybody else, like EGLX, you walk around, you see beautiful pictures, and you imagine these guys are probably doing it since they were kids. It's definitely daunting at first. And so it's kind of like a mountain, and you climb, it looks better, and you climb to the top, and then you're like, oh crap, I got to figure out the animation, and that's a whole different ball game. Artwork, you can kind of make it look pretty decent after a couple of months, but animation is something that takes a long time to perfect.
Well, I mean, thankfully too. I mean, you're doing it in 2D, so I mean, it's probably a lot easier to get a grasp
Right.
of than what 3D probably would be. Because I can't imagine. Like I've seen
Right.
the detailed models you'll see when you see like behind the scenes videos of like major games. I'm thinking, holy shit.
Well, the only thing is with the 3D animation, 'cause I did animation in college. So with the 2D, it's yes and no, because with the 3D character, you have a model already built, and you essentially move that model like it's an action figure. And it's not that you have to move like each frame. It's like you have the arm
Right.
down, and then next thing the arm is up, and that's just one motion.
Well, sure, but I think the thing with 3D though is that, especially in this day and age when so many games get released in such a shit state, that 3D is a lot easier to pinpoint when something has not been done properly.
You
Whereas
fall through a
2D,
wall.
you can accept
Right,
a lot with
right.
2D because it could just be a specific like new art style, or it's just meant to be like Minecraft is
you
not the
can,
best game to look at, but does anybody really care?
Madden is great for 3D.
And a lot of like cartoon games, especially in the indie scene, like you look at a lot of games that most people would like roll their eyes at because of the art style, but that part doesn't matter back then because
Right.
we're more like in the indie scene. I think more people are more focused on stuff that they can do in terms of the gameplay,
You
and
can,
the storytelling and stuff
yeah,
like
is
that.
it
You can
fun
forgive
because it's
choppy
good.
animation.
Because I mean,
Yeah.
we've seen with a lot of Kickstarters too that like a lot of games get brought with like this crazy good art style, but they end up just not coming out with any substance because they put all the budget towards the look.
Yeah, it's true. And if you look at from the animation, so I agree with Vish as well with the 2D. It all depends on the frames, right? So with 3D, you have to at least have that 30 frames per second. With 2D, you can get away, like in my game.
24.
Yeah, you can do 8, you can do 16, depending on how big the characters are. But with 2D animation, I have to hand draw like literally every frame. Where if you're using software like for 3D, it's created for you. So when you move like a limb, it does all the frames for you.
And there's some crazy like mixes of both. Like the Guilty Gear fighting game series actually does this thing where it's a 3D fighting game, but it is with a 2D style to it. So they tried to make it look like it was anime. So
Which game is this one?
Guilty Gear. So it's the guys who do like Blaze Blue, the Persona 4 arena games. The art system works. They actually, I think they did the Kill la Kill game, and they did the Dragon Ball Z game as well.
Yes, they did do the Dragon Ball
And
Z
what
game.
they've done with the new Guilty Gear and the Dragon Ball Z game is that they did the same kind of thing that you were talking about with doing it frame by frame, but it's still set in a 3D landscape. So it almost has the look of like 2D's like frame perfect stuff.
Right.
Where most of the time with 3D animation, you just say, okay, I want his arm to be here, and at the end of the animation, I want it to be here. Whereas they still did it, this, and adding on to it. And it has that weird, like, it's 3D, and yet it isn't. And it's one of those interesting things that, like, when some people do pull it off, it looks amazing, and then if you don't, it just looks so choppy.
One game that definitely pops into mind that did this style was Marvel vs. Capcom 2.
Yeah.
Right.
Where they would have 2D fighting sprites, but the backgrounds were all pre-rendered animations.
Yeah, you started seeing that around like Street Fighter Alpha as well, and, and around that era when people started being like, "All right, let's mess with it a little bit," because they saw with Mortal Kombat, and I think it was Virtua Fighter or Tekken that might have also done that change, where the first initial 3D fighting games just did not work. Because back then joysticks were in the middle too, so camera control was not the
Mortal Kombat 4 on N64.
It's so bad.
Terrible. Terrible.
Really?
I love Shinnok,
Totally hard.
but
Really?
it's a rough first.
That was terrible.
That was a bad first
I
attempt.
know it's still not the PlayStation 2 ones, with like Deadly Alliance,
Right.
and Deception. And,
Those weren't terrible, but they weren't like Mortal Kombat. Like I always enjoyed. It was like 1 and 2, 3 were great. Then there was this period of garbage.
Right.
I
Well,
still
there was
love
the period
4.
that they did like. I think it was like Armageddon where they took out fatalities and they just had to create your own stuff, and it was just
really?
punch, slice his head up, then slice his arm up. Like this.
It was
It's like,
horrendous.
Oh,
there was
wow.
no fun to it because you would just do the same thing.
Yeah.
But then when they had the one for the PS3, I was like,
What, the
Mor-
reboot?
Yeah,
Oh
Mortal
yeah,
Kombat.
when
Was
they-
that
when they
9,
went back to
right?
the old
9,
stuff.
yeah.
That was
okay.
amazing.
Mortal Kombat is awesome again.
Because it went back to kind of 2D space
Yeah, it
with
went back to
3D.
its roots. I mean,
So-
that's what a lot of games have been doing too. Like they stopped.
Yeah.
They realized that you can't do the full 360 direction with fighting games. They just don't
Right.
work.
Right.
Because the camera control can never keep up. Because with such a frame perfect style of game, especially with esports, you can't do the camera like that.
Yep.
It has to be a 2D scale,
So-
otherwise it's just gonna be a mess. That's why games like, obviously, Guilty Gear, Blaze Blue, Dragon Ball Fighter Z, Soul Calibur 6 now, you have like all these games. Mortal Kombat actually was a big one now in esports as well. All those games work now because you can do that without having to worry about it being an unfair advantage or somebody gets laggy on the camera.
Right.
By being too progressive instead of staying with what made them great.
Okay. So with Hellbound,
Yeah.
do you have somewhat of like an online mode with it, like online co-op mode, or is it solely a single-player game? And are you looking at maybe having like some levels be a little bit of an open world, or is it more streamlined?
So it's gonna be single player. I haven't done any multiplayer games yet, so I'm trying to kind of retain the scope here and not, balloon it. A lot of people did actually ask me, I guess based on kind of Dark Soul series, is there gonna be any online? So no, it's just gonna be single player. It will have some, not really open world, but there will be some interconnection between different levels, kind of like Dark Souls, where you find a secret pathway and then it leads you to a secret area that takes you to the hub and so forth. So yeah, it's gonna have that because I really like that in the games as well, kind of exploring and then finding a shortcut. But yeah, no multiplayer for now. Maybe the next game.
And I think I also saw too, you're setting it for console and PC, I think.
That's right.
Is
Yeah.
there any plan for mobile, or is that kind of like you wait and see how the...
So it actually originally started as a mobile game. I created a mobile game just to try it out because I've been working as a programmer for 14 years and never tried creating video games. And so I just want to try it one day. And yeah, I just created like a cheesy Super Mario type of game called Blades on Mars. Kind of like Snakes on Plane, but this is Blades on Mars, and threw it out there after a month work of of development.
There was that, and I think Boomer Pigs was the other one.
Boomer Pigs was another one. This was in my niece asked me to.
Are they still available?
So Boomer Pigs is not. I haven't done any. Apple kind of reached out to me and kind of said, "Hey, look, do you still wanna retain this because it needs to make some changes because of new devices?" And I just kind of shut it down. But yeah, Blades on Mars is still available. It had a significant following in China. So that's kind of what inspired me to quit my job and create video games full time.
Don't get him started on China.
Don't get me started. You know what? Bish asked about an online version. Is there going to be a Washington, D.C. version for the Devilcrats? Because they're totally hell-bent.
Absolutely, that's going to be the last circle of hell.
And you know what? That version, it's going to be...
All right, let's see. Did that spike up? Oh yeah, that's great. That spike.
It's a great spike. It's a phenomenal spike.
I think that's like Trump-specific bingo card is like making the audio spike with a huge.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Huge,
I pronounced
huge
wrong. It's
spike.
Huge, thank you.
Sorry, my bad.
Yeah.
My bad.
That's going to be a great version. I'm going to buy a phenomenal amount.
Awesome.
I think that the fact that you're going single player is actually the best way you could go.
Oh, thank you.
Whenever I play those kind of games,
Right.
I love. Like I'm sure if there was some sort of connection where you like see something somebody else did on that or whatever, yeah, cool. But like for me, it's all about the single player, like Diablo and stuff like that. Like you mentioned, like it's purely about the exploration, the art style, a little bit of story, and the gameplay. And like as long as it's that, like that is
Awesome.
what matters. And that's, I mean, when I played the demo, like that was what I was.
I actually want to ask you something because somebody came up to me and asked me if there's going to be, because of the whole speed running now, really being popular, if I could enable that in a game. So, for example, because in the beginning there is kind of a little bit of randomness with some of the skills.
Yeah, the tarot cards, right?
With the tarot cards, yeah. So for the listeners who are not familiar with it, in the beginning of the game, when you start a new character, you get a random tarot card reading. So one of my...
By the way.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Yeah, everybody seems to love
A
it.
lot of games don't implement that. When they do, I
so-
find they're so interesting. Like the Persona series does it for all their
Right,
all their social
right.
things. So like everybody has their own thing. So that guy falls under the chariot. So usually like he's got a personality that falls in line with it.
Right.
I love that kind of implementation. Was there like an influence that came from the tarot cards?
There was two. So first one was actually one of my relatives who has MS. And I had a conversation with him once where he was positive, kind of telling me some of the struggles that he's going through. And so he told me it's something that always kind of stuck with me, and he basically said, in this life we don't get to choose the cards that are dealt to us, but we get to choose how to play the cards that we have. So I kind of looked at that. That was a really powerful message that I took on.
Or in some cases you just be like, nah.
Yeah, so I kind of said that would be a cool concept to put into a game. And then Persona, like you mentioned, I'm a huge Persona fan, so that kind of was also one of those things where...
He's got extra points with me now.
I really wish tarot cards were Madden. I really do. I think it would elevate the gameplay.
So...
that way.
Only
really
if
like it. I
I
really
want to
like
see how the
tarot
death
cards.
card falls into Madden.
Right.
Automatic
no,
injury.
right.
You have no QB.
Yeah, let's see.
That's
It's like
it.
Mutant League football.
QB.
Concussion.
Antonio-
Martin Goodell denies it.
I want to see what Antonio Brown's tarot card reading would be.
The Joker. Wait, no. What's the card for like the chaotic guy? Shit.
See, I came up with this great idea to have tarot cards in Madden, and you guys just
The
ran
Fool.
with it.
There we
Oh, the
Great
Fool.
idea.
Yeah.
You love it. You love it. And you know what? That's why people are going to love the tarot card component of this when they start. It's really great. It
So
really
apologies.
is.
We sidetracked a little bit.
Thank you,
We were
Trump.
talking
Yeah,
about,
you were asking about
you were talking about
speed
speed running before we kind of.
Yeah, so basically somebody asked me, well, would that be part of the game because it's becoming popular? So I kind of thought about it, and maybe kind of what we talked about the online thing. That was the only thing I would consider thinking about. Is basically like, you beat the game, you can try the game with different tarot cards. It will change the game to a certain degree. But what if you want to do it for a speed run, and then you can basically choose your own tarot cards, and then you can. What if there's some kind of leaderboard? Just the only online component potentially.
There is a beauty to randomness, though. I mean, like I know one of the big things we've seen a couple of times now at the Games Done Quick shows is they'll have
love those.
the randomizer categories too. So they'll have like the race between like four guys
Right.
doing like the same random seed and say like a Final Fantasy game where they're all they have no clue where any of the key items are. The bosses are all changed. So like you could get
Cool.
you can get freaking Golbez in the Mist Dragon spot from the beginning of the game, so he's just a pushover. Or you can get the Mist Dragon in a spot where the Mist Dragon's like magic power is so high that he can one-shot you with anything.
Yeah.
I love that stuff too. So sometimes the randomizer stuff, I think, is even speedrunners would somewhat like that too.
Right.
As long as like an aside thing, I think if you can do both, like that's amazing.
Right.
Because you can do straight like fast run, but then you can also do like how long can you hang on with just not knowing what the hell you're running into?
Exactly.
I could see it with your game how they do it is like 4 people would run the game and they're going to get even just the random tarot cards.
Right.
But it's who can beat the game the fastest, but like one guy might get a really bad game to start, one guy might really good, and it's just like, all right, a race of 4 people.
I think if you're going to do a race, you want to put them under the same thing, so you probably put them in a preset amount of
Well,
conditions where it's meant to be
Well,
hard to start.
actually, I would disagree because with getting random cards per person, everyone's almost equal on the board.
Not really, because in the
'Cause then
randomizer
each
case,
person
if
will have
somebody
their
like,
own handicap.
if you get the death card right away, as one of your, because I think death, I think it was, is it half your health or is it no?
That was
You
a
die
timer,
randomly.
right?
So yeah, so there is
Hangman that it's health is half.
yeah, so there's stamina and health is half, but the thing is that there's really no good or bad cards. That's kind of the
It's just kind of like whichever one's gonna suck now. And
exactly, you got it. So you can have, if you get good cards, they're great now. So early on, you're gonna be stronger. But when he descends into hell, because the whole point is, kind of following Dante's Inferno, Divine Comedy.
He is hellbound.
He is hellbound. He will go into hell, or to what do we say, Washington?
Yeah.
The end goal.
The end goal. So yeah, basically, but then
It's
if
gonna look like what the Oval Office did after Zombieland when we watched that last night.
Yes.
Spoilers.
Oh,
it's a good movie.
oh, it's so.
spoilers.
Oh, yeah.
I love the
Spoilers,
first
there's
one,
zombies.
and I would say this is actually better than the first one.
Really?
It's this very
It
rewatchable.
was very funny.
It's very rewatchable. It's very fun. The action's really entertaining. The filming was actually very well done. There was a lot of long takes that you wouldn't expect in a movie like this.
Sleepy Joe Biden looks like a zombie on the trail.
Well, they were in the White House for quite a bit.
They did spend a good chunk of the first bit of the movie in the White House. It was dilapidated as fuck. On the inside though, it was fine.
Yep. What was really, really dilapidated? Not sure if you're a fan, sir. Graceland. Graceland was massacred.
Elvis Presley's home. That's horrible. Totally like a landmark. Can't believe it. They would do that to Elvis Presley.
They're zombies. They don't know.
They're very rude.
And let's continue. Most kids growing up now don't even know what the fuck we're talking about.
No.
Very good.
Oh my god.
Continue.
The absolute worst was when I saw somebody tweeting like, man, I don't know who this Paul McCartney guy is, but Kanye is going to make him so famous.
Oh wow.
I'm like, you shouldn't be allowed to have children.
It's like NFL Blitz saying it's going to make Madden famous.
So,
Continue.
so going back to Hellbound.
Yeah.
So when did you actually start working on it, and what kind of influenced you to go with that project? Because I mean, I'm assuming you did Blades on Mars and Boomer Pigs before this.
That's right, yeah. So I did that. I released it, made it available for free, and then you can follow kind of on Apple website, iTunes Connect, as a developer. You can kind of follow who's downloading it and where, and so it was getting like 2,000 downloads per day, and so I kind of showed it to my wife and said, look, there's something here, and this was just a hobby that I was doing. So to go a little bit in time after working, because at the time I was working a job that was I kind of felt like a former shell of myself.
Oh yeah.
Putting 16 hours a day and really not getting paid for any overtime. And we're on a beach in Dominican, just with the family and friends, and I'm sitting there. I'm kind of like, I have to do something for the next 30 years before I retire, right? I'm 38 now. And if I continue doing what I was doing before, I don't think I would last another 10 years. And my passion has always been video games. And that Blades on Mars kind of showed me that, yeah, maybe there's something out there. And that's how I kind of started thinking about, okay, when can I start this? I always wanted to create this type of game since I was a kid, since Diablo 1.
Yeah.
For me, the biggest frustration was Castlevania going from 2D into the Nintendo
I did see
64.
that. You were a fan of like the Super Nintendo.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And Symphony of the Night,
was-
my
oh,
favorite.
yeah, Symphony of the Night's
My
probably-
favorite.
That's
I
right.
was
Yeah.
I was
That's right,
playing. So back in the day, Blockbuster had a program where it's about $25 a month, but it was unlimited rentals for games. So you could rent a game, keep as long as you want, and then return it. But then
Yeah,
you
I
could
wish I had
rent.
that as a kid playing Final Fantasy VI and being 50 hours in and realizing, it's over.
Yeah.
Right.
So that was a really good option, and I played some games I maybe would not have played before. I rented one Castlevania game that was out for the PS3, and it was just horrendous.
There was
PS3,
especially
yeah.
PS3, yes, terrible.
Have you tried Bloodstained yet? I've heard good things about that, which was sort of like I guess like an homage.
I did, and I can give my feedback, but it's mine. I don't like it. I think it looks great, and it's one of the I think it was the designer of Symphony of the Night.
Yeah,
he's kind of working on it. I mean, it's very similar, but for me is just not dark enough. It looks very.
I did notice that was on the PlayStation.
Well, Symphony of the Night was PlayStation
and Sega Saturn.
Yeah, and then I think it eventually got a.
I mean, it's on PS4, I think, right now.
I think eventually it got ported to.
Did it?
No,
maybe I mixed it up.
No, that because Symphony of the Night,
is
if it was for PlayStation, that's a 700 meg.
Yeah.
No, but I mean, like they could have like done I might be thinking DS maybe.
No, DS.
I can believe, but
DS had some really good
Castlevania
games.
We're talking like original Game Boy. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Yeah, DS had some.
But I've noticed that a lot. Like a lot of these games that people have been either with Kickstarter or with just studios bringing stuff back. A lot of games that have meant to have been recapturing stuff has not done very well. Obviously, Mighty No. 6 for Mega Man did fucking terrible.
Right.
Which one?
Mighty No. 6, which was made by Keiji Inafune, the original Mega Man creator.
Oh, Mighty No.
I heard it's terrible.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I have it. I don't like it. I was a Kickstarter
really
person.
hard.
Oh, did you have it?
Yeah.
Yeah, I heard it's terrible.
Yeah, not a fan at all.
Contra as well. Did you guys see Contra, the new one?
The new one,
I've
yeah.
heard bad
Horrible.
things about that as well.
Horrible.
Yeah, no.
I think what I'm kind of seeing in the industry is just that everything's becoming a money grab. Everybody wants to just create, like for example, PlayStation 1 Mini Classic. Let's just create something with the name.
Well, the
nostalgia is what's selling a lot of stuff.
What we were talking about was like pre-PlayStation, like Super Nintendo, Sega, Nintendo, Game Boy, and all those systems. The games are timeless.
Right.
You can play Super Mario 3 right now. It doesn't have to look any better. It doesn't have to it still plays the way it should play. It's still user friendly.
And came out 31 years ago today.
Did it?
Yeah.
Yep.
Really? Oh
That's
wow.
why I keep saying we need to make video games great again.
No, it's not that we need to make video games great,
Well,
because video games are still great. The problem is we need to make companies actually answer for their fucking problems.
But with the PlayStation and N64 and even I would say that era, they did not age well. Like for example, if you look at the back of this box, all the games look
pretty terrible,
horrendous, and they don't look 3D like they did back in the day. And that's the problem. They just did not age well.
Yeah.
And I mean, the thing too is like, we do honestly, as people who have grown out of our childhood, that we take a lot of the stuff that we remember, and we really prop it up probably higher than it was, because again, this is back in the day where games were still $60-$70. So when you got these things brand new, like you played it and loved it because it's all you got.
Till next Christmas.
Until next Christmas, Christmas maybe your birthday.
That's right.
I remember just playing NHL Stanley Cup over and over again,
and
loving it, or Wario's Woods, which was just it's like Yoshi's Cookie.
Or Wayne Gretzky 64 hockey. It's terrible, man.
Well, you'll take almost anything and take it a lot better because you have to. Whereas today, you can get anything for $5 on the store when you look at the right sale. Or you go through the indie thing, because that's the thing we always just about to talk about too. Because we're obviously mentioning about how the AAA industry today is becoming more of a
money grab.
We obviously saw what Bethesda just did, because they announced
$100
yearly
Seasons
pass for
or
Fallout
whatever,
76.
You can play with 7 of your friends. A disaster.
Yeah, it's just like it's like that they know that almost nobody's playing it, so they're just going to squeeze every penny they can left out of who's still there.
Right.
And it's why that I think, especially in this decade and as we go into 2020, that the indie industry when it comes to gaming is completely its own separate thing now, because it had to be, because AAA owns so much of the market and alienated so many of their fans that eventually they can just go over to whatever Steam is putting on as their indies. Yeah,
that's what
There's still heart in indies. That's
I don't think we didn't even play a single game in the mainstream section of EGLX. We just we went to the Watch Dogs demo, but when it comes to AAA games these days, I basically am playing maybe at most 5 or 6 every year now, because I'm picking ones that I'm like, okay, this is going to cover me for about a month or so.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This one will cover me for about a month or so. This one I can just keep coming back to. instead of what it used to be, where it was like every month I'm like, okay, that's coming out, I'll get that. That's coming out. Now it's like, okay,
Same,
I got this, and then I got this big chunk of time left. And if something happens to be $10 that I've been wanting to try, like there's a game that I want to try that's called Knights of Pen and Paper 2, which is
I heard about that.
it's like a it's almost
good,
like it's almost like an RPG, but it's based off of like a tabletop like D&D.
It's Dungeons and Dragons,
Yeah.
but like the pen and paper version instead of
Yeah.
like Final Fantasy, which was.
So how do you play it in a video game format?
It's,
So
it's
you have
almost like playing sort of a JRPG, just it has the system of you sitting down at a table with your friends. that kind of
like
deal.
like the
okay.
narrator of the game is a DM, like if you're playing.
Yeah.
Dungeons
Yeah,
cool.
and-
So
yeah,
it's like
really cool.
it's like whatever D&D game you were playing is literally become a video game.
Yeah, yeah.
It's a cool
And
concept.
it's the
I
same
like.
deal too. Like Undertale became a massive hit. Minecraft before it became
Right.
a big deal was a
Oh, yeah.
massive hit.
Oh yeah.
So what happened is that so many of these indie devs started putting their love and their hearts into all these projects, and people fucking noticed. And now you have an age where you can have a company that's run by 3 people,
Right.
and they spend 10, 20 grand on making a game, or they get a little bit of extra money that's from
Right.
people, and maybe it's like $100,000 budget.
Right.
They'll sell 100,000 copies, and they'll like
Right.
make 10 times what they thought they were going to get,
Yeah.
because people can see it. They can see the passion.
Absolutely, and it's the passion, and I think with indie, and depending on what kind of publisher you go with, for example, like Nordwolf, which is my startup, that is going to be the publisher for Hellbound. Now, I just signed a partnership with Steam, but I want to also reach out to Nintendo. I might have to get a publisher just to that's verified with Nintendo. But I think being able to publish a game yourself or going with kind of an indie maybe publisher, you can take more risks because if you have a certain creative freedom, you want to implement it into a game. That's what happened with AAAs right now. If you look at like Blizzard, if you look at if you look at all the kind of AAA, even Ubisoft. Because they want to try to cater to everybody. You have shareholders; they care about money. You have so many people.
That's actually an issue with the movie industry as well,
Right.
with licensed products.
Right.
When it's indie, you have your freedom. When it's run by
The
studio
downside,
heads.
at least in the movie industry, is it's harder to become aware of indie movies because the big thing in the movie industry is that the advertising is what
Right.
really puts movies forward. Whereas
Right.
with games, all you have to do is just get enough people to catch it when,
Right.
or even some like a big YouTuber plays it.
Yeah.
All of a sudden,
I
their
would
traction
say
starts.
Angry
Like-
Birds,
Like
was
the
first
Goose
to
one, for
start
example.
that.
An Untitled Goose Game.
Yeah.
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 I mean, all it takes is you get somebody like say a Markiplier that finds your game. If he does it, everybody else is like, oh, he's
Yeah.
doing that. Okay, I need to capitalize on that too, and just falls
Absolutely.
down.
Because if I was to sit down here, like 2 years ago, and say, "Hey guys, I have this great idea for a game," like what game? You're gonna be a goose. What do you mean I'm gonna be a goose? What are you gonna do? What's his powers? Nothing.
In
You
all-
just
in
clock
all
around.
honesty,
Steal people's stuff.
And what's the name of the game? I don't know. It's gonna be Untitled. So like
Untitled
you would
game.
you would have thought that this
I mean,
is
in the last couple of years, I
Goat
think
Simulator.
we-
Goat
we pretty much
Simulator,
figured out
Farming
that
Simulator.
No idea is a bad idea now. I mean,
Right, true.
Saints Row just basically goes up every time they build
Right.
a game and just goes, "What you got?"
insanity.
Yeah.
It's like, "What's that? You want to have a giant purple dildo bat and fight Ryan?"
Hold my beer.
Well, let's do it.
Yeah.
No, I think what's missing, and hopefully a bunch of indies are slowly kind of gearing towards that right now, because there was Infinity, also another game that was actually at EGLX that completely looked different than any other game. It was really cool from the 2 developers from Montreal. Is that in the 90s people were taking more risks with music, with movies. Like I don't know if you guys remember, but if you went to any not Blockbuster, but any other video shop, there was that section with whole like B-rated horror movies.
Yeah.
For example, that they were great, right? And
Yeah.
these were just movies being, created without having that tier,
Oh, yeah,
release
I
and
can
so
totally
forth.
remember as a kid there being the section that like my folks were like, "Hey, make sure
Right.
it doesn't go near that."
Yeah.
Yeah, and great movies,
Thankfully
Yeah.
they didn't, or thankfully they did, because as I've learned, those horror movies would have fucking destroyed me.
But they were good. They were really
They were.
good.
They were really
Paul
good,
Hardin,
yeah.
they were
Well,
good.
actually,
Yeah.
there was one trailer we saw yesterday before Zombieland.
Oh, the turning.
Yeah,
The Turning?
that actually made me jump and like get disturbed.
Yeah, I was not happy about that because I looked over at Vish. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're supposed to be watching a comedy, and now I just kind of shit
No.
my pants.
It's one of those. It's not just cheap scares. It's actually like
It's
full-
very
Oh,
much
really,
the same
yeah?
kind of feel like what The Conjuring did.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
that
it's
was a
like,
good movie.
So there's this one. Not to go off topic. There's a one we called
Mm-hmm.
Hereditary. That apparently was like saying it's so scary, so scary. So I don't really watch horror movies because
I
I'm not a.
totally saw it. Very good movie.
I-
Very good movie.
I read the
Was
synopsis.
it totally phenomenal?
It was a phenomenally fantastic, scary
Okay.
movie. Same director as Midsommar. Again, phenomenal.
Midsummer?
Very, very
Midsummer.
No,
Midsummer?
wrong. Midsummer.
President told you guys.
Don't be rude.
Midsummer.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
It was both very scary, very
Yeah.
frightening, but extremely, extremely well done.
I heard it sounded disturbing as fuck. As
He
well.
described it to me over drinks once, and the
It's true,
drinks
I
made
did.
it even more terrifying.
Very much so. Very terrifying. Very. Almost as terrifying as the Devilcrats trying to impeach you.
I didn't think that would terrify you.
The senators, they're a little shaky, but me, I'm a winner. I'm gonna be okay.
So we were mentioning earlier, because I was talking about how obviously like YouTubers can really make a difference. And I mean, in our case, like obviously if we do Con Bravo again, we will want to mingle with people there. EGL actually mingle with a lot of people there.
Me and
Because,
Chris
I mean-
are probably. I don't know if you want to jump in. We're definitely going to go to Toronto Comic Con as well.
It depends. Like I'm
Awesome.
kind of iffy on that, just because it's more not my style. But
But also, it's the weekend of St. Patrick's Day, so it's just make it more epic.
so like between
Guinness.
us, between
It'll
content
be a drunk
creators,
visit, huh?
there definitely is a need for content creators to mingle with each other and partner with each other and
You
stuff
gotta
like that.
network. You gotta network.
Yeah, you
All
got
right.
But for smaller like developers like yourself, is there a relationship that you guys have like with other small developers, or just kind of something that you kind of lone wolf?
This is actually like coming from the IT industry and working many different roles. I've never seen kind of the connection with other different people who are, because I figured, okay, there's definitely a lot of people who are making games, and when I started, I thought it was going to be more like competition. It's like, oh, he's creating something. It's completely opposite. I've never seen people being more supportive. It is literally like a family, because at the end of the day, everybody that was in EGLX was creating a game is there because they love it. It's their passion.
And
because
everyone's making a different game.
exactly, and the number of hours and sacrifices that you have to make to actually make a game is just unbelievable. So yeah, people get together, and it's funny, we're talking, I went for lunch with some guys, and we're talking about we're using the same kind of game engine, and it's like, hey, you know what, if you do this, you can. So it's literally it's basically a group that every year it grows. So yeah, it's really great.
Yeah, that's amazing.
Yeah.
So I think because you were talking about the program that you guys use for developing the stuff, I think
Right.
it's Game Maker Studio. I think,
It's
right?
Game Maker Studio, yeah.
So for those who want to get into the industry and are trying to learn stuff, how do you feel like that is for somebody approaching game development? Is that like a good tool, or
Would
is,
they need to know stuff like C++?
It really depends. I think it's a lot easier if you have let's say the smallest common denominator. It would be a lot easier if there was a programmer and like an artist and an animator. You have kind of 3 people. The sound you can figure out. You can buy certain things, but yeah, I would say that's kind of the common denominator. But again, I'm by myself, so you can also do the same thing. There was one person at the EGLX who was an artist, who was not a programmer, and she was using some kind of an engine. I'm not sure. I've never heard of it before, but she learned how to program. So it's basically yeah, you don't have to be an expert. Engines like Unity and Game Maker and Unreal definitely they're trying to cater more to people who are not programmers.
Yeah.
But yeah, like the way that I did it, when I created Blades of Mars, I used Apple's proprietary game development kit, which is Sprite-Kit, and that was a freaking nightmare. Because they give you basic, here's a physics engine, so you're trying to make the guy jump like Mario, and it does not look like Mario, so then you have to take that out, you have to, pretty much, and it looks weird, so I had to create my own physics engine. So because originally I told you this game was supposed to be, it was a nightmare, man. So originally I was thinking to create Hellbound as a mobile game, and then somebody came to me and said, hey, why are you using Sprite-Kit? Why don't you try Unity? And then somebody else said Game Maker. So one day I just went to Coffee Culture and I said, okay, I'll give myself a couple of hours with Unity, couple of hours with Game Maker, and I will see which one for me is going to be the easiest to use.
That's really smart, yeah.
Within 45 minutes I had a prototype running Game Maker, and I was like, done.
It is helpful too, like let's say Unity, where they have like the store that you can just get like assets to. If you're
Right.
just trying to like test something out and learn on the fly, like you don't have
Exactly.
to go through the trouble of creating everything from scratch. You can just
Exactly.
take like this game engine, this graphic style,
Right.
these assets that you can throw on the map,
Right.
and just play with it and just try to tweak it the way that you
Exactly, and that's what Blades of Mars really was. I bought assets and I just programmed. I didn't draw anything, and that's what it was. That kind of helped me kind of understand, game development. But yeah, absolutely.
Now, this is because I'm just thinking about the Unity stuff again. Now, this is not something that's been nearly as prevalent as it was, say, 3-4 years ago. But do you ever like watch out what other companies come up with and keep looking and be like, you literally just ripped off the entire engine and just slapped a name on it? Especially like I remember 3-4 years ago, you would see a cascade of them. Like Jim Sterling used to do a shit ton of videos on all these games. Then literally, it's like they ripped off this asset, this asset, this asset, did no work, and then was just like, this is the name of the game, and just threw it up on Steam Greenlight.
That's basically every Call of Duty.
Well, do you know that
Call of Duty? That's every Call of Duty. They just change the environment.
Make the assets.
So, but
that's different. Like I'm talking, like literally, they buy the assets from a store. Just throw it in there.
So you know what happened a few years ago. So when did iPhone come out? 2008? Before that?
2007.
2007.
Yeah. If only I had a computer to look that up.
So 2007, 2008, iPhone comes out, apps comes out, games start becoming flappy.
Google.
2007.
No.
Stop doing it. You're on the live podcast, son of a...
Ron!
The bingo card just literally got like a giant X in it now.
We all win.
Series offended.
My job is to get the information. Fuck
Google.
Fuck
Nobody
Google.
likes you.
Funnily enough, I just literally finished watching...
I don't know how to help with that.
Hey Google! Stop! Fucking bitch. I literally just like watched Joe Rogan's new podcast with Edward Snowden, the guy who reviewed the NSA stuff.
Right.
And even like all the stuff him talking about like how all of us have fallen victim to just our phones are always on, they're always talking with something. You have Alexa and you have Google Home. There's the thing that we saw in the movie theater, the Portal, the Facebook.
Oh yeah, that thing I'm not touching with a 10-foot pole.
And my thing is like, yes, let me have a camera in my house that is always going to run.
Oh wow.
Because especially by the company that is the least trustworthy with data right now.
Absolutely.
And it's that kind of stuff where it's like, holy shit, I can't understand.
It's actually
I've straight up unplugged my Alexa and Google Home, mostly because I just don't use it that often, but also because I don't need fucking something listening to all my shit.
Yeah.
Now you know what it's like to be me.
Did you unplug your Alexa and Google Home?
Everyone's around me all the time. They know what I'm doing every second.
Oh yeah. He plugged in an Alexa already.
He likes to plug Alexa.
They're very inappropriate.
So basically, the Portal thing, it's a video phone you put on top of your TV.
Okay.
And it's done by Facebook, and you do video chat with it using Facebook.
Great.
It's like automated Skype. I'm like, yeah, I don't trust that.
Yeah, it's like, Facebook made this. It's definitely secure.
Look, if I needed somebody to accidentally hack into my camera and see me jacking off, I would just put the webcam on myself and go on Pornhub, okay? I don't need Facebook to do that for me.
Yeah, that's half my income.
True story. I enlisted the help of Cambridge Analytics, who then went to Facebook. So I got a whole whack of information on voters through Facebook. Thank you, Facebook.
Man, to finish that part, if anybody really wants to understand, just how much, we actually get listened to a lot without knowing, listen to that whole podcast with Snowden. Not to mention, look at his book if you can. Even the movie itself gave you enough information to be like, holy shit, what else do we not know?
Actually, here's something crazy. There's this movie with Shia LaBeouf that came out called Eagle Eye.
Yeah.
Apparently, it was actually a pretty entertaining movie, but it's just a standard action movie.
Well, there's a lot of those movies too, where it's like you see just how weird in a direction we are going in terms of a technological standpoint.
During the making of Eagle Eye, Shia LaBeouf listened to a phone call that he made 4 years ago.
Oh wow!
The FBI consultant on the film told him that they can do this. He goes, I don't believe you. He goes, watch this. Showed him, and he was like, wow, I believe you, because he totally heard a phone call he made maybe 4 years ago that he made to London, England. It's true. Believe me, I know.
So
did you listen to his phone call as well?
So that entire aside.
Yeah,
so going back to the original question, how do you feel about seeing developers that basically fake the system and kind of screw it over by literally just throwing out assets as
No.
It probably hurts you guys' names too as an developer, because people will look at that and be like, well, how do I know that what this guy's releasing is not just going to be some rip-off asset?
I think it's consistency. That's one of the things you can kind of notice if somebody's buying assets is that areas, levels, look different, right?
Yeah.
It is having that consistency. I think going back to iPhone being released in 2008, a lot of basic games came out that were really popular, made a lot of money, and then people started recreating those games, and they realized that, well, I can't sell a lot, but what I can do is I can actually sell the source code. So when I started looking at being a kind of a game developer, you would see the source code being sold for like $100, $80. So people what they would do is they would take let's say like a Flappy Bird type of game.
Yeah, that was definitely a copycat.
Exactly, and they would take the same game and they would just apply different assets. And these things, right? And there was a lot. You had, who knows, Flappy Sheep, Ghost, whatever. But it was being sold.
The Flappy Dick's a different thing.
This would apply.
It's called Mushroom Slap.
It's called David Michelle Sex Tape.
Oh,
That was totally phenomenal.
To our listeners, if anyone has some aloe vera, I need it right now.
Yeah, because you got burned.
Yeah,
That bird was huge.
Let's see.
Yeah.
So,
Obviously, when it comes to developing games, especially as a solo operation, there's a lot of time that does go into it.
Yeah.
How do you actually find time to not even sleep, let alone making time for other stuff, like if you want to binge anything, or even just basic things like hanging out with your family?
It's insane. Thank God I have a supportive wife, because I would not have a wife if she wasn't. Because you're putting so much hours in that it does take away time from the family. I spent probably 2.5 years working on it, and I thought I was going crazy because I figured it needs another 2 years to finish it. And then I found a stat on Super Nintendo Zelda, is A Link to the Past, and somewhere it said that it took 60,000 hours to finish that game. And don't quote me, but I think that if I was to do it, it would be at least 10 years, one person.
Yeah.
So then I realized that, okay, when you look at something like that, you can say, okay, you know what, if I was to build a game and it's about 4 or 5 years, it makes sense.
You look at Star Citizen, which is the biggest bad game ever, and I don't even look it may not even ever come out at the rate it's going.
One?
Star Citizen.
Star Citizen.
I got
took 10 years or
60
15.
million dollars of Kickstarter money, something insane.
Oh yeah.
And yet,
when
this has been going on, I think it's 6-7 years
It's
now.
yeah.
when
something.
Finding Nemo came out, one frame of the 60 frames per second
Yeah.
took 4 hours to render.
Yeah. I can see that.
Yeah.
So when you look at things like that, it puts into perspective. But what I do is I learned actually the beginning, first year when I started, I was working wake up at 4 or 5, and then you just work and spend time with the family, and you work. And I realized that, putting a lot of hours in doesn't equal production. Being productive. So I kind of realized that I need to work out. I need to go to the gym, and that helps me because and I need to take a break. Sometimes taking a couple of weeks break from working a game is the best thing you can do. When you come back,
you might even think of something.
Exactly. That's what it is the ideas, and then you look
that moment of clarity.
Exactly, because when you're looking at something every hour of every day, you start getting kind of a biased opinion, and you either think it looks good or you start thinking that it looks horrible. When you take a little break, and for me it was the other way around. The longer I was spending time, the worse it was looking for me. It looked terrible. So when I took a break, it was I had a side project. It was about 3 months that I took the first break and then came back on it. And I was like, oh my god, I did this all by myself. And this was way before.
Yeah, when you have a chance to take a
exactly.
and you come back and you realize the
I made
scope
progress.
of what you
Exactly.
actually
No, I looked at it. I was like, oh my god, I did all this, and then kind of gives you more motivation. So
that's the thing. I've been doing this YouTube game on and off for 10 years, and I'll go back and watch old stuff once in a blue moon, and I'll go back and I'll have a laugh at it, but at the same time I'll be like, holy shit, how far have I come from way back then?
Right.
And you'll do the same thing. You'll look at which was your first game? Was it Boomer Pigs or was it Blades on Mars?
Blades on Mars.
So you'll probably look at that, and then by the time Hellbound's done,
Absolutely.
you're going to look back at Blades on Mars. He's like, okay,
yeah,
that doesn't. It's not as great
So-
in retrospect, but that was a stepping stone.
Blades of Mars. That was more like just a fun to play game.
That's
kind
it.
of Angry Birds, right?
Exactly. It was
So-
kind of like Angry Birds, 100 levels, and kind of Super Meat Boy maybe.
Okay,
yeah.
where Hellbound is more like an epic. It has a
Right.
story and there's an end
Right.
game to it.
Exactly. So for listeners who are not familiar with it, it's basically it's kind of a Diablo 1 Castlevania style of a game. Yeah, it has that epicness. You're pretty much following the roots of Diablo 1 going through various levels as you catacombs and caves as you descend into hell. So there is a significant game.
How many levels are there in it? Or is
So-
there one level and like the game is like?
So kind of like Diablo 1, there's 16 levels, so each area has about 4 levels, and then you go lower and lower, and I think I'm going to a little bit extend that, and because I really want to spend more time in hell. So I'm going to go through a couple of circles of hell
Yes.
in Washington.
Yeah.
So so I think it's going to be a little bit more than that, but yeah, right now, so what I've finished is I finished the first 3 areas. So now it's focusing on hell.
Are you designing the levels yourself as well?
Everything, yeah.
He's solo.
That's
Everything. Yeah.
fantastic. It really is.
Huge.
Phenomenal.
there
Building
any-
it all on your own, just like I built my company. And that's why he's a winner.
And bankrupted.
You're being very rude. Very wrong.
Is there an overall premise to the story, or
Yes.
at least one that you want revealed now? Or-
Yeah, I don't want to go too much into because I don't want to have any spoilers.
Yeah,
it's
Hashtag spoiler alert.
You die a lot.
Do you know that a lot of people actually, when I started posting some YouTube videos, people were like, "No, you need to let us know if there's a boss in this video because you're ruining it for us." So now, for any video there's a boss, I have to kind of specify there's a boss here. Just ignore it. Yeah, with the story, yeah, absolutely. You basically find yourself mysteriously in this village. You have no idea how you got there, but you're trying to figure out what's happening. Similar to Diablo 1, everybody in the village is kind of telling you that, look, we've been stuck here for months. There's a black plague that kind of encircled the village. We can't escape. There's the only exit, I think, out of the village is through going through a mine, but the mine did collapse to a certain point. A lot of people died. So a lot of the townfolk went into the mine, but never came back. So which kind of inspired also by Demon Souls. I don't know if you guys play Demon Souls, but
I've tried.
I don't know if you remember the story, but it was this fog came in and
I couldn't tell you what the story was. All I knew is I got killed a lot.
Right.
That was my experience
Yeah.
with the game.
and I love that. It was extremely challenging and frustrating, but it was fair, and I kind of want to create the same experience.
And that's the thing that sucks for me. Like as a gamer, I find because my time is not as what it used to be. Obviously, being in high school when you have literally as much time as you want to put in.
Right.
Now it's hard for me to justify those games because I'm like, okay, if I die 10 times in like 10 minutes, it's like, am I really having fun? I don't know if I can carry over the time. So I find like a lot of people can do the Demon Souls and the Dark Souls and like Sekiro now.
Yeah.
They can do that. I find that I'm the asshole that plays every game on easy or normal now because I just want to enjoy the story.
That's why I had to stop playing the reboot of Crash Bandicoot.
Oh, really?
It's not as so it's still fun, but it is a lot more difficult, and that you would have put up with now.
Right.
Because the mechanics are still there, so it's not as sometimes when you move a character in a game, it'll just slightly move. You slightly move Crash, he'll take 3 steps.
Oh, right.
So
yeah, it's like the way the old controls used to be, where they were still a little dodgy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not Bubsy 3D bad, but
Bubsy 3D.
I've never played that.
It was terrible.
Don't.
Yeah, terrible.
it's almost as bad as Superman 64.
It was yes, that's
I
right.
don't think anything's as bad as Superman 64.
I said
yet.
almost. It's
Almost.
close.
Almost.
Yeah, I think there needs to be some kind of a reward system. Like if the reward is
Trophies?
good enough, it could be. I think it's just like, for example,
in
I
this
think
day and age, no, it's a participation.
I think it's like in Demon
Start the
Souls, when you beat that demon, there was, you do get something significant from it.
Yeah.
Because like in Demon Souls, if you beat the demon, you get the soul of the demon, which then you can build a special weapon. So it gives you that motivation to kind of stick through it. But you're right, a lot of games now, they're kind of the reboots. They go with the hard mode, and it's just annoying. It's not fun.
Yeah.
Especially too, because a lot of games tried to copy the Souls series because they saw how well it did. So you just make a hard game, and it's like, no, you don't understand what Souls actually is. Souls is a hard game,
but fair.
But it actually understands that if you die, it's because you didn't learn.
The same with Cuphead.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a game that once you kind of pick it up, it's actually easy.
Like the closest
Like,
game
it's not-
to that I've actually managed to do well in was the new Monster Hunter World.
Right,
And that was a game that was streamlined enough that I could handle it. It was still very difficult if you didn't come in planning ahead. Same with like The Witcher 3. Like Witcher 3 was also a game where the first 2 were really difficult and were a little too complex, whereas 3 streamlined enough that it's like, okay, it's still fair, but at least it gives you a fighting chance. Monster Hunter's the same way, and like you said with the Souls games, that you will create weapons. You'll eventually get pieces off the monsters to create armor and weapons that make you look so interesting and unique.
Yeah. Have you played the original ones?
What?
Monster Hunter?
I played. I didn't grow up with the originals, but I did play Monster Hunter Tried for a little bit on DS. That didn't go so well for me. When Monster Hunter World came out on PS4, like all my friends were getting it, so I'm like, you know what? Screw it. I'll try it. I'll play with friends. It should be fine. Fucking loved it. At first, I played it solo, and it was really difficult because they all got way ahead of me because I wasn't playing it as hard as they were. But as soon as I caught up,
co-op or
it is, yeah.
Up to 4 people co-op. If I
single and a co-op, yeah.
You can play it single. You can play with 2 or 3. It defaults. It changes the HP and the attack levels of the boss depending on how many people are in your party. So that way, you can't just come up with 4 people and just beat the shit out of it. You still gotta try.
But it's a hardcore game in the sense that, let's say you're fighting monsters obviously, but 45 minutes is to fight a monster.
Yeah, it
you will spend 45 minutes, and then at the end you die, and you're like,
you'll be tracking.
You didn't progress anywhere, right?
Yeah,
you'll be tracking it for like 15 minutes.
You'll
end up coming across a different monster that fucks your shit up while you're trying to find it. If you're lucky, one of the big fuckers comes in, finds the little guy that you're trying to fight, bites the shit out of him, takes like a good chunk of his health, and you're like, thank you. And you just hope to God he doesn't eat your brains at the same time.
Yeah.
So it's got a real world aspect where it'd be like, predator attack another predator.
It's a completely active world, so there's stuff that isn't even just trying to kill you, it's trying to kill shit around you. Like there's herbivores on the map that the carnivore monsters will go and kill just randomly in front of you because they're trying to eat too. So it really is like an active bit of nature.
Wow.
Yeah.
So like they'll have dinosaurs like the Anjanath, who pretty much just looks like a T-Rex.
Aren't they isn't Netflix looking at making a show about that?
Yeah, that's the one.
Oh, they are.
Manojlovic is in.
The
Monster Hunter?
Weird little thing
Really?
Yeah.
Like they showed a little bit of military stuff, and it seems like it's almost like an
People
isekai
from
anime
Earth
where they end up ending up in a monster
go
hunter
through
world
some
that
sort
aren't
of
from
portal.
military.
And
Oh, really?
There,
That seems to be the angle they're going. I haven't seen much of it in a while.
I've only
which is
seen
worrisome.
shots from the set.
That's the thing. It's been a while since we've seen anything, so that does worry me.
Yeah.
Monster Hunter was huge in Asia.
Yeah.
In Japan, on PSP, people
They're-
used to just...
It's the weirdest thing. Japan seems to be really shocked every time something succeeds here. So like Persona, they couldn't believe did so well.
Right.
Yakuza now is like becoming a big deal.
Right,
People are
right.
finally noticing it, and it's going off the charts. The new Fire Emblem game did so well on Switch, and the directors were like, "We had no idea how many fans played these games here in North America."
Yeah.
And my reaction is, "Really? You didn't notice that after you released 10 high quality games in a row, that people were like, I want in on this."
Yeah.
No,
Monster Hunter, enough quality came in, and they finally hit.
Right.
Monster Hunter World hit the streamline point that it was good enough,
Right.
where it was still challenging for the diehards, but
Yeah.
approachable enough for newcomers that it went like crazy.
Yeah, absolutely, and that's what it is. I think if you look at like the traditional Japanese games, they like to kind of sit there and go through the story, and more Western is we like more of the action.
Oh yeah, because you even look no further than Dragon Quest.
Right,
like, Dragon Quest as a story, it's fine.
Yeah.
But Japan, they love their grind. They
Right,
love to have
right.
to work for stuff.
Right.
Whereas a lot of games here in the West, like that's why I used to see, especially in the early days of PS3 and Xbox 360, every game was like 5-6 hours.
Yeah.
No substance. They just wanted to, like, people would get them just for the trophies.
Yeah.
Or they just want to complete stuff and be like, yeah, I did it. It's like, yeah, but what did you accomplish?
I know when Demon Souls came out in Japan, it sold like because it came out first there, and it was actually published by Sony.
Yeah.
I think it released something like 40. It sold like 40,000 copies. That was it.
Wow.
And then Atlas being always kind of porting weird games.
Atlas understands when stuff's gonna work too.
So they kind of said, no, we're gonna port it to North America. So they did. And I remember I was watching a review somewhere before the game came out, and I was like, what is this? It kind of looks weird. It looks cool, but it has this dark fantasy to it. I remember I rented it, played it for 5 minutes, I said, that's it. Went and bought it, and this was going to be a hit. And telling people originally, like, you got to try this game. Nobody was into it.
There's such a
And
joy in that too when you're one of the early adopters, and you're just like, holy crap, it's coming.
Can I get under here?
There is such a joy
Yeah.
in being the guy that like finds the diamond in the rough that people haven't heard of before. Like out of all my friends, holy crap, don't hit me with the beer.
How do you like this new cans?
I love it. I love the Guinness can.
I thought they were.
Thanks.
Here, give me the can for a sec, just so people can see it on the.
And they keep changing them, man.
I thought it was actually the blonde Guinness. That's
No,
first when I saw
like
it.
they've had it because they had
I
the
like
original
look of it.
toucan,
I do like
the
it.
Guinness toucan,
Toucan Sam.
like the toucan bird, like a real
Oh,
one.
Yeah, right.
My
being
Goodness, My
sarcastic.
Guinness was their
Right.
like ad thing. They'd have different animal stealing a
realized
Guinness
something.
Why wouldn't they just make it follow your nose?
because that would be a copyright infringement.
Nothing's quite as good as Make America.
They
can try.
No,
They can try.
no, you need Tony the Tiger. Make America great again.
It's true. Tony's a winner.
I just realized something. What? You are being very sacrilegious here. You are no longer Gin and Chris. You are Guinness and Chris.
I'm just
Gin
today
and
having
Chris.
some
Still
Guinness
GMC.
and wearing a Guinness shirt.
Nice.
It happened to work
Nice.
out like that.
Totally sold out. Today, he's sellout, Chris.
I mean, like,
My favorite beer.
I mean, this is so
So
honest.
anything
Like,
except my taste buds.
if Chris had a blood type, it would be Guinness.
No, it was
That would be-
GCC.
Yeah.
Gin, coffee, Guinness.
Cheers. Speaking of Dark Souls, you said that for Hellbound, that's one of the
Oh,
inspirations you had.
Talking not about Hillary, right?
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
That's a different kind of demon.
Continue.
I mean, she looks like a demon, but
That type of demon I can't even put into the game.
it's
too big. Too scary.
I didn't mean to interrupt. Actually, the first time ever, I didn't mean to interrupt. But please go ahead. Sorry,
Wrong.
I'm talking about the devil.
So, we definitely can't put it on the Trump bingo card because that might be the only time that ever happens. So
Yeah, that's a
apologize.
one-time.
Yeah.
That's not happening ever again.
I guess only the guests get that kind of treatment.
Yeah.
True. And you know why? Because he's a winner. Go on.
Take Trump.
For Hellbound, are you going for that hard but fair kind of gameplay? That's because that was a
Exactly.
little bit what I was getting when I was
Yeah.
trying out the demo at EGS.
Exactly. Yeah. Like it has to be fair. I need it to be hard because games these days do a lot of hand holding for you. If you play original Zelda game, you have no idea where.
Yeah.
Or even I played not long ago Super Nintendo's Link to the Past.
I
and
just finished that yesterday for the
so
first time.
so remember the quest when it tells you go talk to this old man in the village, and you're in the village, the old man is not there.
Yeah.
And you spend 3 hours and finding him somewhere on the
He's
mountain.
on the other half of the map.
But that was also like maybe a little bit to the extreme, but it was fun when you actually do that and you find it, rather than arrow pointing like no, go here
Yeah, I
and
mean,
talk to.
there's a bit of both because
Right.
these days with open world games being as big as they are,
Right.
you kind of need a
Exactly,
waypoint.
yeah.
But like, because I know the opposite doesn't work too. I remember playing Morrowind, and
Right.
if you drop it for more than a week, you
Right.
don't have
You
a fucking
forget
clue what
everything.
you did.
True.
Well,
Yeah.
there's no quest objectives. There's no map.
Right.
There's a map, but there's not really.
Yeah.
The
Like,
first
so
time I
if you
played Devil
ignore
May
it-
Cry,
Yeah.
I had to start all over again because I forgot what the hell happened.
Yeah, because I mean, like going back and playing Skyrim then is a completely different.
Completely
because
different,
Now
that's
at least
right.
you know, okay, if you drop it for a month, okay, you look up, oh, that was the last thing I was
Right.
doing, and I got to go that way. Okay, and then you start again.
Exactly.
Morrowind, you just if you weren't playing it all the way through and didn't stop, like you got fucking lost.
Yeah, and going back to kind of like Dark Souls is hard, but once you get a feel of the combat and the it's easy, right?
And rewarding.
And rewarding. So
Yeah, it is a matter of more learning.
Exactly.
And then when a new enemy comes in, relearning.
Exactly, and I kind of want that the same thing for my game, where it is hard, but once you kind of get to know the combat, you get to know the enemies, then it becomes easy and but really fair, like no cheap deaths and a lot of games that.
And you feel like a badass when you like
Exactly.
die to the same boss 3 times, and on that 4th time,
You-
oh yeah.
The
Destroy
previous
'em.
times you're like,
Well,
There's
there's a psychological theory that video games teach people to
kill.
strive through. Yes, that too.
to kill.
I know Nintendogs was the game that made Chris into the angry, vengeful.
Angry
Again,
white man. Very
Being
angry
10
white
dogs
man.
makes me want to hurt people.
Very angry white man. Look at him.
So, where they're saying that video games are training people to overcome failure, which is true.
Oh, that's true.
because
Hillary
especially,
Clinton should play it then.
but how many elections is she going to go through?
Hopefully no more.
Yes.
Yeah.
Hopefully put the nail in her coffin.
Anyways.
Failure. Continue.
So to go back to different demons.
So, so it's like because you play games like Tetris and pretty much Angry Birds as well, where if you like try to get through the puzzle, you fuck up and you're like fuck, but then you go back to it and back to it and back to it, and then you finally do it.
Well, I mean,
So-
that's what the speedrunning community basically became too. It's like it's just you
Right.
keep playing the game and you keep learning something else new that just
Yeah.
helps you shave off more and more time.
Yeah.
And it's that whole idea too. That's like so many games now. It feels like people are trying a little bit too hard to be gimmicky now, whereas they're
Right.
trying
Right.
instead of doing what they should be doing, which is just creating an experience that you'll learn something from and take
Yeah.
something from it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, a lot of games from when we grew up, I mean, they were challenging, yes, but when you finish them or when you at least accomplish like a certain level, you got the sense of, okay, I finally did it. Like, I remember playing Sonic 2 back in the day, and I refused to play it with the save point. No, sorry, Sonic 3. Because Sonic 3 had save points. And I refused to play it with save points because I wanted to be able to do it all at once.
Interesting.
Is there, like, which game was this? Oh yeah, Witcher 3.
Yeah.
Is there speed runs for that game?
I mean,
There's speed runs for everything.
There could be.
The-
It's just
yeah,
it's not
yeah,
something
true.
you would put on a Games Done Quick because it would be like 30 hours.
Right.
Like somebody did a speedrun, I think it was Baten Kaitos on the GameCube, which is notoriously one of the longest games you can play.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
And like though it's like multiple day sitting. Like, he has to like stop his timer
Really?
and come back to it. I'm gonna actually look it up what the speedrun record is.
And,
because it's
actually-
insane.
Correct me if I'm wrong. I heard that you can pretty much fight
Yeah,
Ganon.
342 hours is the record.
Oh fuck.
Wow.
That's a lot.
Yeah.
300.
That's
Nine,
incredible.
so 342
Wow.
hours, 19 minutes, and 56 seconds, which is just over
Holy
14
crap.
days.
Oh,
So
right.
it's- you can't do that in one sitting. Otherwise, you'll be the guys in those Korean cafes who end up just passing out and
Right.
dying because
Yeah.
they sit there for 2 whole
Yeah.
days.
That's crazy.
So with
Copyrights to stay awake. True.
Done it. Done it.
So that's a lot of
University.
smelling salts.
It is.
correct me if I'm wrong. The Breath of the Wild, you could fight Ganon almost
Right.
instantly in that
Right.
game.
Yeah, there's,
Yeah,
there's,
I
think you
there's
had
like
to
a
go
cheat that people have done now where like they hit themselves so hard across the, like they actually will fly across the map
Right.
Yeah.
to get there so much sooner than you should be able to.
Yeah, because you need like about 45 minutes at the beginning of the game to go through the tutorial area.
Right,
It's not like
right,
a tutorial,
right.
but you're like on this one area
Yeah.
that you
So-
need like the hang glider.
It's like the
parachute
same thing
to
when
get
people
off.
figured out ways to get into the Deku Tree and Ocarina of Time
Right,
without actually
right.
having.
And I think that's okay. I think that's also the beauty of the art itself because I mean it's there for you, you know,
Yeah.
to play any way that you can.
Yeah.
And
Absolutely.
You
if
almost kind of
that
hate it when like games update and they take away bugs. It's like,
Right.
what was the fun in it?
right, yeah,
But is it possible to actually fight and defeat him?
yes,
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
You
yes,
have only
It's not
3 hearts,
easy.
but if you don't get
Yeah.
hit, you're fine.
Yeah.
You can do it.
yeah, you can do it, yeah.
Huh.
It's a very
Yeah.
open
I
world
mean, hell,
game.
the
They
speed,
did
the
it
speed
very
run for Ocarina
specific
of Time requires you to never have a sword. You
Hmm.
beat Ganon in Ocarina of Time literally just standing in the middle of him and just poking him with a fucking Deku stick.
Yeah.
There's no sword. You never get the sword of the shield, I think.
So that actually can happen?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Damn.
Yeah.
How long does it take to finish Ocarina?
I think the record for Ocarina of Time is like less than 15 minutes.
Yeah, yeah.
There's
It's
a lot of
glitch.
glitching.
It's a glitch.
There's a lot of
Oh,
glitching.
okay.
You had mentioned earlier, or asked actually, about the speed running thing for your
Right,
game. Yeah,
right.
that's a big thing. I know. Like we watch Games Done Quick, where like twice a year there's a huge.
Yeah, now
thing.
they're pulling like $3 million every
Really,
6
yeah?
Yeah,
months
and
for charity.
donations for cancer.
They're
Oh,
doing,
nice.
they're doing more
Oh,
content.
nice.
Now they're doing a lot more streams too. They do stuff at PAX now. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think
Yeah.
they're at TwitchCon again this year too.
Yes, they would.
So like, it's becoming a much bigger community than I think I ever would have thought it would be too.
That's what I heard too, and that's why I kind of consider it. And from my perspective, it's not like there's a lot, you know, involvement from development perspective. Just open up the cards,
Yeah.
let them choose.
Yeah, you could do it where you choose the cards,
Or
there's
randomly,
a timer
right.
or something
Right,
that runs
right.
when you play the game, and
Right.
then that
Right.
I think that's all it would
And
take.
even
Maybe
then,
an
like-
achievement or a
Right,
trophy
right,
that
right.
It's like you beat it under.
I mean, there's always
Right,
the option
right,
too,
right.
like if you put it on Steam, there is the open chance for like a Steam workshop, so somebody else can input something in there, like a timer or something else, like even in
Yeah.
post, right?
Okay, yeah,
for sure.
yeah.
Let's see. So, because we were talking about like controversial stuff at some point, like when it came to like used assets and things like that. So, one of the bigger controversies that we see today in the industry, and it's mostly because of this guy. Hellbound in nature is
Yeah.
a violent game,
It is, yeah.
and in the last little while, violence in gaming has become, I guess, a re-emerging
Scapegoat.
issue.
Yeah.
It's what
It's
it used
always
to be
been, yeah.
15 years ago when
Yeah.
you had like the Jack Thompsons, when you had Grand Theft Auto and
Yeah.
the hot coffees,
Yeah.
just, and all
Final
that
Fantasy
stuff.
VII.
Yeah.
So, as somebody in the industry, like,
Mm-hmm.
how do you perceive what like outsiders from the industry, like whether it's politicians, the media, that don't really understand? Like, how do you feel about that when they look at your industry, like your baby essentially is like something
Right.
that's almost
We
poisoning
like to
people?
say guns don't kill people. Video games kill people.
I mean, you kill people
He
in
does
video
not
games.
speak for the rest of us.
That's a really great question, and you know, it's something that I think the next generation, like for example, like my daughter is 5, the other one is 11 months, but the 5-year-old is actually starting to dab into video games, and I think
That's amazing.
them growing up, video games is just
You
going to
raise
be
them
like
right.
Yeah, you raise them
Yes.
right. And
it's
you're
just
very
going to be like a
positive.
normal thing right now. You know, even if when I talk to my parents or I talk to some of the older generation, just talking about making a video game or playing a video game, they don't understand it, so right away they don't like it.
Yeah.
And same goes with the violence. I mean, like in video games, there is violence, absolutely, but there's violence in movies, right?
Don't tell them that. They don't notice that.
Right. At one point, they used to blame heavy metal as kind of like the violence in music.
I made the comment when Trump first made that comment about games, and I said, okay, is it like 1990? Is it like the 80s again? Am I going to have like Dee Snider from Twisted Sister come out and talk to the PRC again? Where's Jack Thompson? Where is he hiding? Are we going to have like Doom and Wolfenstein come back out?
We like to recycle old ideas that we think are forgotten.
But then if you look at like Mortal Kombat 11, it just came out and it's extremely brutal. And we're getting to the point where the realism is there, right?
I mean, the one thing that I will at least give, I guess, politicians and media and parents and all that, is that we are becoming desensitized to the violence. So there is that sense that, like, you could conceivably make a case that, like, a kid could go out and shoot friends in his school and not be fazed by it because he's seen so much violence that maybe he doesn't look at it the same way. I still have a bit of disagreement in that, too, because it's a whole different story when you're actually understanding the real suffering that comes with that.
I think, like, if you look at, like, in history, right? If you look at like in 14 to 18, those are 5 million soldiers died in World War One. They saw a lot of violence, right? You look at World War Two, like throughout history, that was just part of the normal. I come from a country where there was a war, there was violence. So I think now in the last since the 80s, we're kind of becoming desensitized because there's really nothing here.
Well, yeah, we really haven't done anything to. I even said it after because people were talking about after the election that we just had here in Canada. About how, like, it's so weird that everybody's calling for change and yet we keep going back to the same stuff.
Right.
And now we find in this political landscape that we're so not used to having no enemies really to be worried about tomorrow.
Right.
That we've just started looking at each other and finding enemies
Absolutely,
that way.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, I honestly, like, you probably know better about this than I would, but I feel like the last situation that we really had as like a nation to worry about potential war would have been the Russians.
Oh, that would have been going back to like the 70s.
Because I mean,
I thought you were friends with
9/11
the
was
Russians.
a thing, but I mean, it was more like a single thing, and we just went to go ham on that.
Right.
It wasn't a threat of us being like massacred.
No, and if you look a couple of hundred years back, I mean, it was a normal thing that you go to war, you see real violence.
You're like late 1800s, early 1800s.
Right.
Like, you would just get shot in the street. Like, that was the Wild West.
That was Red Dead
Wild
Redemption.
West. Right.
Yeah.
There was a great story that I saw actually the other day. It said Jesse James one time paid a woman like the money that she needed to pay off, I guess, her insurance policy or whatever, and then he literally robbed the guy after she gave him the money to get it back. Because that's just how it was.
Oh yeah.
Like, it would be no surprise back in the late 1800s that you'd just be walking on the side of the road.
You know what?
It
It doesn't take too long because where I was born in Yugoslavia and it was a socialist country, so you couldn't do anything because they would make sure that you're either gone or that you don't ever do that again.
The government, like everybody criticizes me.
We really underestimate the scope of how much history we really have.
Yeah.
Like,
Absolutely,
we were watching Joe Rogan's special the other day, and he even mentioned like, how long does a person live to? 100. So when we first colonized America, that was 3 people ago.
Right.
When you really think about it,
it's true.
It really hasn't been that long.
Yep.
It feels like because of, I guess, of technology especially, it feels like we've been around for thousands of years like this, when realistically, we've been domesticated and actually like fully functional maybe for a millennium.
Absolutely.
And even in terms of like being able to socially handle just being around people, a few centuries.
It was less than 100 years ago that World War II happened, and like just over 100 years ago that World War I happened.
Yeah,
so it's like
it's
realistically
true.
Imagine
speaking,
that.
And then Vietnam War, 1969. So you're getting like and that's why I kind of keep.
We're almost 50 years removed from like the last like real big civil war.
Right.
It's here in the West, obviously, in
But
other parts of the world, there's still
everybody-
a lot of infighting.
The Holocaust happened in 1939 to 1945, and everyone said never again, ever again. But there have been genocides since.
Yeah.
Rwanda.
Rwanda,
was like
Sudan.
forgotten,
Yeah.
almost, basically
People
forgotten.
don't even acknowledge the genocide of the Armenian people.
I mean, there's a lot of stuff, and too, it obviously
There's a lot of
becomes a
violence.
case
That's
of we don't
basically
hear
my
a
point.
lot.
Yeah.
Like, there's a lot that we aren't told because we don't need to. Well, we don't need to know about it.
Right.
I mean, the Hong Kong thing, it probably would have been swept under the rug if it was. If it was a lot smaller. It just got so big that no one could ignore it.
Yeah.
It's the same deal with.
Right.
It's the same deal with.
Yeah.
with a lot of, like, there's a lot of attacks that happen probably in Africa that we'll never
Oh,
hear
yeah.
about. Because
Oh,
it's
yeah.
not like with 9/11, because it isn't
Right.
Because
a
it's
major
a
building
ocean
in a
away.
major city.
Right.
Total ocean away. No one ever thinks it will happen to
Well,
them.
not only that, but
because it's an ocean away.
the World Trade Center coming down in the middle of downtown New York is a lot different than
Oh, yeah.
a school being blown up
Yeah.
in some random African country that you probably don't even remember the name of, because unless you are really good with geography, you probably don't remember that
Yeah.
name. So it's this case where, going all the way back to where I
Right.
was kind of going with is
Yeah.
that because we don't have an enemy to really look at. I mean, now we
Mm-hmm.
kind of are starting to see it with like what's going on with Russia and China.
The Democrats.
I mean, it's even weird enough that like North Korea suddenly like petered out, which is such a weird
You're
thing
welcome.
to
Yeah.
say.
You're
Yeah.
welcome.
But because there has been such a long
Yeah.
amount of time without
Yeah.
us having really a fight to fight,
Right.
it's become now of we just turn at each other and we
Right.
yell. Where so now you get back.
Yeah.
I mean, even in the 80s and the 90s, when you, like you said, death metal, D&D used
Oh,
to be
yeah.
a satanic
Oh
ritual.
yeah. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Even like cartoons back in the day.
Oh, yeah.
Comic books like back in the 30s, I think, got hit, and that's when brought in the gold, the silver, I think it was the Bronze Age or the Silver Age was the comedy age, and then you got to the next age, which was where you got Dark Batman again,
Right.
all
Right.
that stuff.
Right.
Yeah, because
It's
that
always
was-
like that because when there's enough time, when you don't have anything else to worry about,
Yeah.
you will literally be like, okay, what else can I skew and fearmonger and turn into
Yes.
an issue?
Yeah.
And we see that today
Yeah.
in the games industry with like what the politicians and the media have been talking about with
Yeah.
violence.
Yeah.
You see what we have with journalists and media like Kotaku,
Mm-hmm.
IGN, Polygon, and all these ones talking about how all these games are sexist or misogynistic or racist or
I heard
whatever.
that on
And
CNN.
they demand that every game must have a political standpoint where it's like, in your case, your game is about hell. Like, yeah, it must be a Republican thing. I
No,
guess.
no, Democrat. You're Democrat.
But that's the thing.
And-
right? It's like I don't play a game like, say, Horizon Zero Dawn or
Right.
Yakuza or even Grand Theft Auto and think,
Right.
oh, this is a left game,
Right.
or this is a right-leaning game.
Right. Right.
I'm like, I'm a dude,
Yeah.
or I'm a girl.
Yeah.
That's what it is. I don't care.
How do you self-identify?
Yeah.
I identify as
Avocado.
A wolf.
Oh god.
I identify as
Ron, I totally set you
Avocado.
up to say I identify as a gamer, and you blew it.
because I'm not a gamer.
Not huge.
Not huge.
Not huge.
That's because I'm not a gamer. I'm not a male. I'm not white. I'm not Canadian. I'm not what any of those things. I'm me. That's the important thing. That's the other thing too that gets lost is that we try to
Yeah.
like compartmentalize people.
Right. Right.
So it's the same thing. Like everybody thinks that the Souls community is its own thing. There was that
Right.
story too where they were saying that games like Sekiro need an easy mode,
Mhm.
and to which all the community on that side said, this is our thing. Like this is what this game is. It's not supposed to be easy.
Right. Right.
Where you have this other outside community who thinks they deserve everything too, so
Right.
they want a piece of that pie.
Yeah. I think it's hard to make everybody happy, right?
It's impossible.
It's impossible. So that's one of the biggest challenges. And I think like just from the violence perspective, you know, the reason or one of the reasons why kind of I even started thinking about creating a game was when, you know, waiting 10 years after Diablo 2 for Diablo 3, and then when this game that looks like World of Warcraft comes out, very similar to it, it was a huge disappointment.
Oh, yeah.
Dante's Inferno game,
Yeah.
trailer was stopped, the game was, in my view, pretty bad.
Yeah, it was
Not great.
And you go to
that was
Yeah.
PS3 360.
Yeah,
no,
yeah.
That was a full God of War clone. I actually
right.
I didn't mind that game.
Why?
And,
Because there were boobs in the first 2 minutes?
oh, they had
Yeah,
the-
that's exactly why. Here I'm like, oh, cool, the poem about the 7 levels of hell. So I was like, there's tits.
actually there was,
Wait. Do you play like Dead or Alive for any other reason?
I don't play Dead.
there was one,
But I would.
there's one level in Dante's Inferno where they have like babies
Oh, the fetus level?
Yeah.
crawling
babies.
out of the
Yeah.
chick's nipples,
I
and it was just like this is
Yeah, you
so
couldn't say that the art
fucking-
style wasn't interesting in that
yeah,
game.
I think what it was missing though, I think it was missing. I mean, like we
Quality.
all, well, it was missing quality, but I think we all kind of, like if we were all to say kind of what do you envision hell as? It's different, right? But I think it's like it's dark, like it's scary, it's unimaginable, and I think that's
It's all your fears.
Divine Comedy. That like it does a pretty good job in highlighting some of the kind of potential like circles of hell, and that's what I was. But EA being EA, I think I don't know what the rating for Dante's Inferno.
It was
It
that.
had-
wasn't.
it had to be
it
that.
had-
Was it?
yeah.
Yeah.
It did have the greatest video game movie I've ever seen in my life, still to this
Really?
day.
Because I watched the trailer. The trailer was amazing.
Yeah.
Game came out, and I was like totally disappointed.
Yeah.
It's a God of War clone.
It is. Yeah.
Yeah.
And
It
God of
didn't, it
War.
didn't have the God of War finesse.
Right.
It didn't
Quality.
have it. Yeah, the
Right.
quality.
And
It
so
didn't have-
True.
So that's one of the reasons why I said
yeah, it was
okay.
meant for mature, unsurprisingly.
Yeah. So that's what I said. Like, you know, if the premise is hell, like it needs to be messed up. It needs to be
Yeah.
dark. It needs to be unfiltered. And you know, I like kind of Alfred Hitchcock style, where he lets your imagination, because your imagination is gonna go beyond what you're scared of.
Heavy Rain.
Yeah.
Did you ever play that one?
Yeah. I love that game.
That
yeah.
one. That
Yeah.
one was like insane because it's like you're like trying to like who's the bad guy, but it's like I was playing as him the entire
Right.
time.
Way to split. Oh, that's an old game. Who gives a shit?
It's 10 years old at this point.
Yeah. Yeah.
I like but what you said about the Alfred Hitchcock though.
Yeah.
It's true. Like he didn't give you all the answers.
Right.
Your brain filled it in.
Yeah.
But your brain went
So
bad.
do you
dark.
know what actually scared me? Like I was never really scared of any horror movies, and I watched them since I was a kid, and I guess my parents weren't. They didn't really care. So I watched as a kid. I watched horror movies, and you know, as a kid maybe I've been scared, but then after I didn't. But this might be funny because to a lot of people that I talk to, this movie's not scary at all. Blair Witch. They never showed the witch,
Yeah.
but the actual I pictured her in my head as this messed up thing.
Yeah.
If
I
there's
scared the shit out of
anything
me.
I have learned is nothing can be scarier than what your imagination.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's like I would never watch a Final Destination movie ever again
Right.
because I don't need to give my imagination fodder.
Right.
I don't need
Right.
to give it more ideas.
Right.
Because you're going to go in
Right.
the tanning booth, and then water's going to hit the plug, and you're going to burn to death.
Literally,
There's gonna be a
I
tank
remember-
somewhere. Tank's gonna run me
I
over.
remember
And,
watching the third movie when I still ended up getting to see it because my parents liked them for whatever. I'm not sure how. But I saw the scene where the girl in the hardware store gets the nail gun through the head. I
right.
worked at a hardware store and I was going to work that day.
Adam quit that day.
So I literally remember
Yeah.
walking around that warehouse being like, that could kill me, that could kill
Right,
me,
right.
that's going to fall.
Yeah.
No,
And
it's
the thing,
true.
It's like it's the same reason. Like a lot of people are afraid of the dark, not because it's
Right.
dark, but it's because you don't see
know it's
anything. And
Exactly.
your brain will put something in that.
Same
spot
reason
for
people
you.
are afraid of like open water. They're not afraid of the actual
Right.
water even drowning.
They're afraid of
It's
what might be
what
there.
is right beneath me right
Exactly.
now that's like about to grab.
I wouldn't say it's like the thing with open water is you're in an abyss. You don't know what to do and where to
There is
go.
nothing.
Right.
There is nothing more scary than not knowing what's there.
It's true.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's why
That's
movies
true.
about demons, poltergeists, ghosts, spirits that you cannot see, you don't know how to deal with.
They're a lot more scary than say a Leatherface or
Right, exactly.
Right.
or a Freddy Krueger or something.
True.
Like
Well,
that.
a
Yeah,
lot
or
of
Hillary Clinton.
movies,
Hillary Clinton,
a lot of
Hillary
movies like
Clinton,
with,
Freddy Krueger, same thing.
Yeah.
horrible.
movies like with Freddy Krueger and with like Leatherface and all those. They're more like action movies.
They're like
Right.
villains. They're like
Horror
iconic
movies.
villains. Like you know,
Yeah.
like with
You know you
comics
have to
with
run
Joker.
from them.
Right,
You
yeah.
know where
Because
they are,
you're-
you see them
Yeah,
coming,
you're
you gotta get away
you're
from those
fighting.
people.
You're fighting. It's more like an action movie than
Yeah.
a horror
And
movie.
I wish someone would just fight back. They don't have a gun or anything.
I
Well,
I,
as we learn with
Grab
Jason,
a
it
bigger
doesn't matter.
knife.
I think they're playing on a psychological level where a lot of, I don't know if you guys kind of have this, but a lot of people do have those nightmares, and most of the nightmares are where somebody's chasing you, can't run away.
Yep.
I don't know if you guys had that, and when I have those nightmares, you're running away and there's strings kind of being attached to you and you're ripping them off.
It feels like you're running in water.
And when
Exactly.
you're punching someone in your dream, you're like, it's like you're punching
Right.
a pillow.
Right.
I have the weirdest thing where I actually control my own nightmare. So what'll happen is
Babes.
I'll figure out that it's
That's
once
So you have a
I'm
power.
self-aware.
That's
Like
called
I've never
lucid
run
dreaming.
from something.
Lucid
Oh,
Generally
right.
speaking,
Yeah.
it's me alone,
Mhm.
and I'll realize that something's off. Like
Matrix.
like you're you're in your bedroom, but you realize the light switch is in the
Right.
different side of the wall.
Right.
Or like you go to turn on a light switch, it's not working. Like
Yeah.
even something as simple as that.
Yeah.
And all I have to do is scream, and whatever is becoming, like whether it's there was like an old picture as a kid in my grandparents'
Mhm.
house. It was like this weird pencil drawing of like my great grandfather, just fucking.
And it was always looking at you, right?
Yeah. So like someone
That's
would
the
run
worst.
it would be like that, or it would be like my cat, or it would be my
Right.
dad. Like it would just be something. They would
Right.
come out and they would just go after me, and all I would
Yeah.
do is I just fall to the floor, close my eyes, and wake up.
Right.
So like my nightmare was more just like the fear of knowing that it was coming, that you knew it was
Right.
happening.
Right.
Whereas I didn't know I didn't know that anything was after me. I just eventually knew, oh shit, I'm in it.
But you know why people like things that frighten them, and especially games that are totally phenomenal, incredibly well done, and that just are creepy, scary, and things like that, is that it raises your heartbeat, and it gets your adrenaline pumping, and then that gets you excited. It's true.
Makes you horny.
I saw this.
I was gonna say, what, if I want to get my
I
heart
got a lot of kids.
No more horror nights for you.
If I want to get my heartbeat up so badly, I won't play a horror game. I'll just get an anime game and I'll just keep staring at titties and I'll be happy. I'm like, okay, I'm in.
I saw Evil Dead, and that movie is genuinely.
What, the remake?
Yeah, in 2013, that movie.
Oh, right.
is genuinely
Terrifying.
Like my heart rate I could feel my heart pounding in my chest, my
I
adrenaline.
saw a horrifically
It's a
scary
good movie.
in 2016. It was called the Democratic National Convention.
I knew it was coming.
Nightmare.
I knew
Horrible.
But yeah, no, like as a whole, I think, obviously from our perspective as gamers itself, it's very frustrating to watch people, I guess, demonize the industry that we love.
They're just
Yeah.
trying
And I
to
imagine
It's
for
so
someone
true.
who's trying to create,
Absolutely,
it's even
yeah.
more frustrating because for us it's $70 out of our pocket.
Yeah.
For you, it's your life, it's your livelihood.
Absolutely, and you said it right. You said it's your baby, and that's what it feels like. It literally feels like this is my third kid.
Yeah.
Child.
And that's why it's really hard when you go to a convention like EGLX. This year was okay, but last year, first time that I went there, first time showing my game to anybody, and you're terrified because you don't want. You're like, okay, somebody might say, but you don't
wanna
want
make a
somebody
good
to
first
offend your
impression.
baby. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's kind of how it feels. But you're right, absolutely. And on one side of, like, if you look at how many people are playing games right now, I think the average gamer is like close to 40 or 40.
Yeah.
So that kind of helps with, if you look at the politicians are a little bit
Yeah,
older.
it is going to
that
get to a point that like 20, 30 years from now,
Right.
most of the people that will be now in Congress
Exactly.
are going to be guys
how,
like
ma-
you.
how many people in the beginning hated movies before movies was a
Yeah.
big thing, right?
Well, right
I mean-
now, that's what's happening with Martin Scorsese and Francis Ford Coppola. They're the old school
Right.
directors
Right.
where, like you said, 20, 30 years from now, they'll be like, they'll talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe
Right.
with fun
Yeah.
memories.
Yeah.
The best
Yeah.
example out there right now is the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame because it was a boys' club. It was a very, very strict club. You would see bands like Motorhead and
Right,
Black
right.
Sabbath, and all
Right,
not getting
right.
in. And finally, they couldn't get denied. So what happened is that once Black Sabbath gets in, you get the Foo Fighters in,
Right.
you get Rage Against the Machine, you get and you get all these guys like Dave Grohl, and when Nirvana goes in, obviously Dave Grohl gets his voice in there.
Yeah.
You all of a sudden have guys, because I didn't know this. Once you're in the Hall of Fame, you actually get a vote to bring other guys in. You can now.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
that's
didn't know
So what
interesting.
happened is that because a lot of these quote unquote music nerds started getting in the Hall of Fame from their bands, they started being like, hey, why is Kiss not in? Why is Rush
Right,
not in?
right, right.
Like, why is Deep Purple not in? Because when you look
Yeah.
at the list, even today, there's still a lot of bands that are like, how the fuck are they not in?
Right.
Yeah.
And
It's
now
true,
what's happening
absolutely,
is
yeah.
because some of these guys are getting in,
Yeah.
you know, now they have a say. It's not
Yeah.
just the Bruce Springsteens of the world.
Right,
Now it's
right.
it's Dave Grohl. It's like
Yeah.
one of these days, Iron Maiden's going to get in. Judas
Oh,
Priest
yeah.
will get
Iron
in.
Maiden's not in?
Nope. All the big like heavy metal
It's
bands
insane,
from the 70s,
right?
Like
Yeah.
I think most of the hair metal bands aren't in yet. Like I think
Yeah.
Guns N' Roses. Actually, Guns N' Roses is a big one that helped too. 'Cause Slash.
Right,
Slash
right.
is a big fan of a lot
Right,
of this stuff.
right,
too.
Yeah.
right, right.
Well, I don't get it. Like,
And that's
what-
all it is. Is like once we get another 20, 30 years in, especially in the
Exactly,
gaming
yeah.
industry, you're going to have guys that grew up being massive like GTA.
Oh, yeah.
players.
And they'll
And
be
they're
over
going to go
60.
into Congress
But
and they're going to be
then-
like, why the fuck are we worried about
Absolutely.
whenever Nintendo's coming up?
But
Absolutely.
why? But then there's also the ones, there's psychopaths like Chris who got angry and vengeful off Nintendogs. Do we really want guys like him in office?
Yes.
It's just the dog wouldn't die.
Yes, because it
I
needs
didn't want to take care of it anymore.
if we have a
He
war of
loves
robot dogs, he'll be the
dogs.
first to pull the trigger.
Yeah, we all love dogs here. This conversation actually didn't happen. Please.
Kill.
Video games cause violence, Vishal.
I mean,
Jeez.
sorry. Look,
I had a Tamagotchi. That thing made me rage.
Oh my god.
Yeah, but
and then Furbies made you want to just actually kill things.
I actually threw that thing down the stairs.
no,
I
Furby,
did.
And he came
just
back.
made you want to kill the Furby because it was a terrifying little.
Teletubbies. I remember when we came to Canada, my sister, she loved Teletubbies. No, she was scared of them. Sorry, not loved them. She was scared.
Everyone should
to
be
be
scared.
fair.
Walk in Walmart, you hear them like, yee!
Yeah.
There's a lot of kid stuff that when you look back, you're like,
Oh yeah.
The sun was
That's
a
fucking
baby's
weird.
face in that show.
The
Why?
baby,
Yeah.
that baby is a parent now.
Terrifying.
There's some of the weirdest things too.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
I remember, like obviously Barney being what it was, but like George Carlin being the narrator in Thomas the Tank Engine.
Okay,
like,
that's genius.
Like weird shit like that.
Right,
Like,
right.
The guy that was famous for saying all the words you couldn't say on television was also the narrator for a kids show. It's that kind of stuff that just
He actually was very. He took that role to heart. He actually really was
loved
proud
it.
of that role.
No, he did a good job. I watched that a lot.
So, before we like move on to a couple more fun stuff, does anybody else have any questions like in terms of his project? Because at this point, I'm out of like
So
combat
you're
related stuff.
estimating completion date around 2020?
No, 2021 most likely,
Okay.
and later in the year, because what's happening right now, when you have a game of this size, right? It's probably going to be at least 4 or 5 years of development. There's no funding unless you go out, you get a publisher or you get a Kickstarter
Or win the
what-
lottery. You know?
or win the lottery. So
I think
in the
it's actually
meantime,
Kickstarter.
So in the meantime, you can either go
Kickstarter
that
lottery
road.
tickets.
Yeah, just send them this way.
Yeah.
Or you can actually, in my case, I do have a startup. So basically, my company, we do software solutions, and that helps me then
I was
fund
going to
this
say, I did
project.
see on the
Oh, okay.
website that you have an app for business cards.
Absolutely. Well, but we also create. So I have a couple people working for me, and we create cloud solutions, mobile solutions, and so forth. So basically, so that helps fund this. So in that perspective, I'm not rushing, but also my time is shared with this as well.
Yeah.
So I
I was
will
going to say, how do you
try.
actually balance between the two?
It's basically what I
No
do
sleep.
is pretty much. But what I do is I basically I would love to work on the game absolutely all the time, but I can't. So what I do is I kind of create a pipeline of certain projects, and then I get it going and work with my guys. And then when I see that now they have enough and I'm there to more supervise and everything, then I can focus on the game. So it really depends. But yeah, that's kind of hopefully end of or kind of 2021 mid.
You got anything else about the game, Chris?
Well, you said that you're gonna go for releasing on Steam,
Right.
and that you pretty much, I'm assuming, you said
Yeah.
you've been approved already.
Yeah, I've been
for that?
approved. Became a partner with Steam. So yeah.
Perfect. I'm gonna
Have
pick
the
it up
games hasn't
there.
come out you with
Yeah.
a big fat contract trying to get you to be exclusive yet?
Oh yeah, epic. I mean, if they do take it,
Right,
they
right.
are
That's the
throwing
thing. I
money
love it when
around.
people demonize the developers for it.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
if you're
No.
like a fledgling like company that's trying to
Right.
make it,
Yeah.
and everybody
Right.
comes up to you like, hey,
For
we'll
$8
pay
million.
you,
Yeah.
we'll pay you
Right.
$100,000 for the game that you've only been
Right.
put like 25 grand in.
Yeah.
You're like, we'll give you $100,000, just be exclusive for our store. You're like, where do I sign?
Yeah, exclusive for a year or something. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think I don't know if you guys are familiar. Like a perfect example is Axiom Verge,
Yeah.
Oh,
right?
yeah.
So that game, that it was one guy working on it. He was working on it for about I think 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, it was. Yeah.
Part time, but he did a lot of game kind of jams before that, kind of creating copying Metroid. So he had a pretty good understanding of. I think he also was using Game Maker, but yeah. So he was basically creating this game, and then he went to one convention. I don't know what PAX or GDC somewhere in States.
EGLX.
Or EGLX, and
Right.
Sony approached him, and Sony said, "Look, we want exclusivity for like 30 months," and I think they paid him something like 100,000 American for those 3 months, which he was able to quit his job and finish the game.
Does he
Yeah,
get,
like that's-
Does he get royalties off the purchases as well, or?
Oh yeah.
Well, he
Oh,
gets
so
it's
happy.
70%, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think
It's
Sony,
70
Steam, all of them take.
So that's
30%.
actually it's interesting, Chris, because I was just talking to a couple of guys who have publishers. So and that's people don't really realize with the indie scene is that there is money, but only 1% of all games in indie scene actually make money.
Yep.
99% don't make money, and the reason being is that if you can fund the project yourself, right? When you do release and then you get 70%, right? Whoever is selling it, Steam or Nintendo, they take 30. Apple, that's normal, and that's fair. They're doing all the marketing. Pretty much once you make this available and you do localize, it's available to in the whole world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's absolutely more than fair. But what happens typically is you get a publisher. So for people who are into game development or want to become game developers and they're thinking about how can I get funding, there's something called Canadian Media Fund. Canadian Media Fund is something that is phenomenal from perspective of media in general, like Netflix movies in Canada, music. They're really pushing hard for it, so they give you the funding. The thing is that, and don't quote me on this, I'm not 100% sure, but they take a pretty significant percent of the royalties.
Of course, they gotta make the money out of it.
Right. So it's more like an investment. It's kind of like, yeah, the government is doing it, but it's more like the Shark Tank, where.
Well, yeah, they try to get like a certain percentage of the company so they can always
Right.
boot you out if they think you're not doing
And
it.
then think of this as well. So you do that. So I know guys who did that, but then you also get a publisher as well. So a publisher Stacy's piece. So now you have kind of 3 hands kind
Yeah.
of dabbed in there, and
So it just your percentage keeps getting more and more
it gets
saturated.
exactly.
I
And
mean, in all
so
honesty, it seems like for a lot of indie developers, the goal is less
Less
making
interference.
profit, because a lot of you probably won't. It's
Right.
also at the same time, maybe you do a project good enough that maybe a bigger company
Right.
say, looks at you and says, "Hey, I
Right.
really like what you're doing here. Why don't you come work for us?"
Yeah.
There is also that prospect
there
as
is,
well.
yeah. And there, you know, just like with everything else, there are projects who've done really well. It really, like the way I think, to me, if you create a quality product, if you create a quality game, people will be attracted to it. They will like it. And that's kind of like my strategy for Hellbound. So I do believe that if I create a really good game, a quality game that is interesting, that is challenging, that will pull people in, it will do well. Yeah.
I think it will. I mean, I got to play it for a bit. And
Quality
like
always.
if you release on Steam, and you were mentioning you were also going to go
Yeah.
to Nintendo.
That's my goal, yeah.
That's
But
your
we
goal.
didn't announce anything yet.
Yeah.
I didn't
you're,
announce,
you're
but
hoping,
yeah.
I mean, if you release on those, like I'm picking up on both.
Yeah.
I know.
Thank
Well,
you.
I
Thank you.
quality, and no pun intended, quality always trumps.
It's a horrible.
Well, that's the thing. You look at the industry as a whole. Like,
No pun
Yeah.
intended.
it sucks because obviously, like, even with what happened just right now with Blizzard with China, you know what's going to happen
Right.
is that BlizzCon's going to happen. They're going to try to protest, but Blizzard's going to come out like, "Oh, Diablo 4 is coming out," or "Here's Overwatch 2," and people will immediately forget.
Yeah.
Every year you see people complain, "Oh, FIFA, NHL, NBA,
Right.
and like Madden,
Madden.
they're all just copy and paste games. Still sell.
They make tons
I
of
haven't
Madden
bought an
is
EA game
phenomenal.
in like.
Call of Duty.
Same here.
Everybody makes
Same
fun of
here.
it being copy and paste. Still sells 9-10 million copies.
I gave
So-
my last Madden I bought.
Did you?
You
know what?
notice
That's
that
cricket.
for a large part of the fan base, it's
Right.
just it's almost like comfort food.
Yeah,
So for
I
indie
agree.
developers, like
Comfort food.
it's a real pain, but it's also
Yeah.
a blessing at the same time
Yeah.
because you know that if you actually make it, that you must have done something
It's
very genuine and very unique. Because if it sells, it means it got
Yeah.
even through the people who normally would cast the shit
Absolutely.
aside.
Absolutely, yeah.
And that's why, like, when you see the stories, like especially
Yeah.
like an Undertale, which has become such a great story
Right.
for indie developers as a whole, that's something that on paper looks so simple. It's all it was a love story to the Earthbound games or the mobile
Right,
games if you're
right.
in Japan.
Yeah.
And all he did was just he loved it that much that he just wanted to make his own little spin on it.
Yeah.
And look at what it fucking turned into. It's
Yeah.
become it's literally like one of the bigger memes when it came to the gaming industry for
Which
such a
meme
long
was this
time.
one?
Undertale. Same with Minecraft. Minecraft was I can't imagine they were expecting it to be something that literally they would have their own convention
It
for.
was digital Lego.
Like
Yeah.
it was just it starts as an idea.
Hollow Knight. There's the
Yeah.
what's the other one that just Celeste?
Celeste. Yeah.
Celeste was huge. I think it's
Shovel Knight.
Shovel Knight,
there's
yeah.
Always,
Angry Birds for
and you
prime
notice
example.
with
Well-
all of these projects, there's one consistency: fucking passion.
it's that exactly. And I think like Dark Souls, right? So Souls series. It was one guy who was working as a QA. He was started young. He was working as a QA for one company. I don't know if it was from Software. He was working somewhere else.
Is it Digipass? No. He used to work for something.
Oh yeah. And then after a while, he had this idea for a game. And I think he was in From Software when he kind of tried to pitch it, and they didn't like it, and he kept going at it. And it was a game that he wanted to play, inspired by certain. I think it was like a movie or comic book that kind of inspired the whole dark fantasy setting.
Okay.
But it was really like passion. Yeah, absolutely. It's really the and you see it in movies. You see it in music. Nirvana, for example, and you see in movies as well. Like you take a movie like Blair Witch that costs like less than 10 grand,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Right. Paranormal Activity, same thing, right? So
Saw originally.
The
was
original.
Like,
Oh, really?
Yeah,
Yeah.
like the first.
Oh, I
Saw
didn't know.
movie.
Yeah,
Wow.
Saw was like
Wow.
Saw his first movie was an indie film.
Yeah.
Like it was amazing to have guys like oh my god, what's the
Danny
what's
Glover.
Danny Glover.
Oh,
Danny
wow.
Glover, and what's the guy that played Dr. Lawrence? He played
Oh, yeah, he was something.
he was in Robin Hood Men in Tights is where I remember him from.
Was he Robin Hood?
Yes.
Oh, really?
Robin of Locksley.
Was he though? Actually?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Like the Mel Brooks comedy. Yeah.
Yeah.
I love that movie.
I'm blanking on his name, but it's like they just managed to get guys like that. But all it takes is enough passion on that project,
Right.
and it turned into obviously a franchise that kind of lost quality towards the
Yeah.
end.
Yeah.
But,
Studios got a hold of it.
Yeah.
And it's like anything else. Like
Well, because it was a good return on investment. The movie probably cost about $10 million at most to make.
Right.
well,
right.
the original
Always
one I think,
brought
was
it.
like less than
Oh
100
no,
grand.
that original.
It was
But
like
by the time going
40,
forward.
50.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like nothing. And
It was just in one room, and there were.
It was in one room, yeah.
No, but
Yeah.
I mean, going forward with the sequels, they probably cost about 10 million max to make, and then
Yeah.
boom, the return on investment was
And,
phenomenal.
and I think like what's happening is, which is kind of going the other way. If you look at EGLX, like I was at E3, right? So E3, I went there in June. So
Ooh, how was E3?
so that was interesting
That's
because
kinda chaotic, too.
I always put since I was a kid. I think E3 first one started in '95. I think.
Yeah.
Sounds about right.
95. And basically, since I came to Canada in '94, I always used to read Game Pro magazines, and they would talk
Game
about
Pro.
it. Oof, I
Nintendo
love it.
Power, PlayStation
Right.
Magazine, like
Game
all
Pro is always my favorite one.
It was
Pro
same,
my
same,
favorite.
same.
Yeah,
I loved
100%.
it. And it would be E3. So right now, kind of, I actually wanted to set up a booth there, and I got quoted something like 15,000 American dollars.
Oh,
Oh,
yeah.
Canadian. Sorry,
It-
Canadian
it-
dollars.
It also doesn't help that now that they've made it open to the public, like it's now
Right.
become like it's not just a closed show or it's
Right.
just media. It's now like people. So like they're like, look, if you're gonna come
Yep.
in here, you're gonna have a real good chance to sell your game now because you're not just gonna get media personnel, you're gonna get fans.
Right.
Also, they probably should. They probably want to charge you more too because like all the major publishers are pulling out now, so they
Well,
need to make money somehow.
but you know what's interesting? When I went there, I kind of wanted to see. I went more as a visitor and just kind of want to see from the perspective of kind of indie scene what's there. And when I went there, it was all AAA's. Nintendo had like Luigi Mansion they freaking built a hotel for Luigi
Oh,
Mansion
that's
inside hotel.
awesome.
There was
Some
a
of the
lineup of
displays in
people.
there are just
Oh, yeah.
It
ridiculous.
was almost as big as my house.
It's no wonder why some games. It's no wonder why some.
All my hotels are huge. Mar-a-Lago, beautiful.
I mean, it's no wonder why some games like flop because they spend so much fucking money
Right,
on the marketing
Anthem,
materials.
like Anthem, and
Yeah.
but it's interesting because I couldn't find like an indie scene, right? So I kept going around because this thing's huge.
Show that
So
big.
right.
Yeah.
So I did find actually an indie scene, and I think it was basically managed by Indie Caddy or something like that. They're pretty big in Europe, and then what they do is they have an event, they pick kind of top indie guys, and they put them, they fund them, or I don't know, maybe they work with them to kind of bring them to E3. No, I'm not gonna say anything bad about those games. Like every game, I think has their own appeal, but compared to E3, I think EGLX had a much bigger choice of like
Well,
the
you
indie
notice too
scene.
when it comes to
Yeah?
an E3 show. Like,
Oh,
they're
absolutely,
trying to
absolutely,
hit-
yeah.
They're hitting the
I wouldn't
mainstream
have
market.
Same here, yeah.
E3 is a trade show, so they're hitting the mainstream market.
Right.
They're not looking to get
Right.
niche, unique stuff.
Right,
Whereas EGLX will have anything.
exactly, and that's how I was disappointed. Then I learned later, like PAX and GDC, they're the ones that kind of are.
So you try to get a booth at Fan Expo next year.
Where's
I don't know,
that?
Does Fan Expo have a lot of gaming stuff?
Yeah, they have like a
Is that Canadian
full gaming
or-
section. Oh yeah, it's
Actually,
Toronto.
yeah,
It's like
same
Oh, really?
place that EGL.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I didn't
but
hear
it takes
about
up the entire
Because
convention
it's all
center.
Oh, so both the
encompassing
south and
everything.
north,
It's not just games.
Yeah,
Oh, wow.
it's everything. It's
Oh, wow.
like movies, shows, like
Celebrity signings.
Oh, okay,
Yeah,
okay.
all that.
Yeah, so
Well,
that was
you'll-
kind of interesting.
You'll notice that like EGLX, like the stuff that we saw, like there was your game, we had the party trivia game. There was,
Right.
There was that like weird NES looking like Nancy Drew sort of like mystery game.
Oh, that was like an old
The
DOS.
point and click
looking
adventure
game.
kind of
Yeah.
game.
Julia
That-
created that. That was the only other single developer I talked to her.
Yeah.
And she was an artist who kind of did this as an art kind of project
Yeah.
portfolio, and then she decided to create it as a game.
Yeah.
It looks really cool.
It was your game and that game that actually struck my other friend of ours, Kevin, that was there.
Thank
it
you.
was those two games
Yeah.
that
There's
like,
one game.
broadcasters
Really?
like
It was the only
These are
single
the
developer,
shooting
so that was
games,
interesting.
like, that was fun too.
Yeah, I mean there was that. Like there's a fucking football game there. There's
There's a football game?
Yeah, there's a
I didn't
football
see
game there. There was like I guess like an indie.
Yeah.
football.
Really?
I can't remember what the
It was,
name of it was, but
Like American
Yeah.
football?
But it was
Really?
Madden quality graphics and gameplay though.
And I
Really?
mean, like you had that. You had trading card games. You have these weird like cartoony like beat 'em up games. Like everything
Right,
was
right,
there.
right.
Whereas at E3, it's shooter.
That's exactly what it was,
shooter,
yeah.
Action adventure,
Yep.
adventure,
Yeah.
RPG, open
Yep.
world, shooter.
The
It's
only
like,
Yeah,
thing
it's
I
true.
think E3 is worth going for is to see
it's to see what the future's gonna look like.
you see the previews of what's coming out and trying it out. But then
E3 are there to see the big stuff.
yeah,
like,
the
that's what it is.
lineup.
Yeah.
The lineups though to even at Fan Expo, the lineups to try the big name titles
It was
is
insane.
atrocious.
Well, like the lineup, like I remember hearing stories at E3, like just to play when the Switch first got announced, just to play
Yeah.
Breath of the Wild, 4 hours.
That's what it was for Luigi's Mansion, Borderlands 3, huge lineups.
Yeah.
Fan Expo as well was a pretty big
Really?
lineup to put
It's
forward.
Not like 3 or 4 hours.
It's
No,
those
not
big
that.
like
conventions,
that.
though. I'm like, I don't understand.
No.
Like, I don't love anything enough to want to
No,
stand in line that
same.
long. Like when you see the stories about San Diego Comic Con,
Right.
that like camp out for a week because they want to see the Twilight actors up
Yeah.
close. It's like
Yeah.
Just
people
what,
in line
Twilight
for
actors.
rallies.
maybe Adam. Maybe the fact that just I stayed up all night just to do Twilight actors up close, just so I can punch them right in the face.
I'd still be like, you're a
I
fucking
didn't
loser.
know that's where you were going with that. I thought you were.
No, that's
actually
what
saying
Anthony
cinema.
Jeselnik does. He's in this direction.
No, I actually thought you were saying you personally waited in line for Twilight. I was like, oh god, why is he admitting this?
No, good God, no.
I mean, if Twilight is an anime, I would at least would have taken a look at it. That's about it.
No.
But
no.
stepping away from that stuff, like, are you just playing anything like these days, like now? Like, are you playing at all, or is it mostly just focusing on?
It was mostly, I was mostly focused on my game for a while, until I kind of, because I always try to kind of read through what other kind of successful game developers suggest, and they always suggest, go back to your previous collection games that inspire you, play them through. There's always cool kind of things that you will catch that really you like, that you might want to incorporate in your game. So I've been doing that, playing Dark Souls. There's a couple of games like Hollow Knight and Dead Cells. A couple of games.
Dead Cells, yes.
I heard about that do have. So what's the other one? Blasphemous.
Yeah.
Just checking them out to kind of see. And I'm looking more when I'm playing this game. I'm looking more kind of from my perspective what is actually now working in these games, so that I can not incorporate that in my game or
Another
kind
game
of be.
similar that I suggest that I've seen as well is Salt and Sanctuary.
I play it. I have it. I got it as a birthday gift, and it was interesting because when I got it from family members, I looked at it. I was like, "This is very similar." Yeah, this is very similar to your game. That's why we bought it.
There's one game that's it reminded the gameplay of Hellbound. The Power Rangers co-op. It's like a side
Oh, what, the
scroller.
art style?
Yeah, just like the gameplay art style, like side scrolling, like going
Oh,
back
yeah.
and forth, and like
Like the old school,
Old
like,
school
2D
arcade.
beat-em-ups kind of deal.
Was this-
arcade beat 'em up. It's a Power Rangers game. It's available digital download. I believe it's available on Steam. I have it on the PS4.
Is it a new game? It's a PS4 game.
But it's on the PS4, but it's a digital download, so it could be available on other
I'll
platforms.
take a look
as well.
at
I
it,
think it's on Steam.
I still
Yeah.
love
Is
how
it-
we made the transition from Dark Souls and like crazy violent games to Power Rangers.
Go Power Rangers.
Super violent Power Rangers.
But I
Right,
just
right.
found that
I would watch that.
Yeah,
Wasn't there like a fan video of like this like R-rated Power Rangers thing?
Oh yeah, there
Oh,
was.
that
And they got Tommy
would
in,
be
the,
awesome.
like the actual
And it was
Green
actually
Ranger.
kind of interesting.
Oh, really?
I find
Lord
that with
Zed's
a lot of like
bleeding.
I guess like child things, like when they make it more mature, it's like wow, like I never thought of it that way. Like you can imagine like what Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles would actually
Oh,
be
wow.
like if they were properly using
Right.
weapons.
They,
Right,
they
right.
went back to the original.
Yeah.
Shredder would just be straight up fucking murdering everything.
Well, if
He's
they, went,
covered in knives. He's literally covered in knives.
if they had made it like the OG source material, like the Ninja Turtles were violent
yeah.
in their original source material. And they were saying like the fact that they made the show for kids is so bizarre because
Well, because you make the money off of kids.
yeah
Right.
Yeah.
That's where the money
Right.
comes.
Action
It's the same.
figures.
It's the same
Yeah,
deal with video
exactly,
games. Like,
exactly.
If you want to really make your money in the gaming industry, you go after kids.
That's right. Like He-Man, for example, they made the figurines first, and then they made the
The
animated
show after.
the show.
Yeah.
Because I mean, as much as we like to say that like Red Dead Redemption is a big thing, and it is,
Right.
Minecraft is going or Fortnite is going to do so immensely more because you can brand it with everything.
Well,
you can make
Right.
a million toys
Right.
about
Right.
it.
True.
Well,
You can
there's
make
a
shows
difference.
about it. Like, I
Yeah.
think I wouldn't be surprised if you see somewhere down the line there's going to be a Fortnite movie, and that's going to sell out.
Well,
stupidly
Fortnite
well.
is different
Right,
because
right.
Fortnite is continuously playable, where Red Dead Redemption is one ginormous story.
No, but what I mean
and
is
then
you can't
it
market
ends.
Red Dead Redemption to a family who's got a 7-year-old kid. You can market Minecraft and Fortnite.
Right.
Todd
I mean, you
McFarlane
shouldn't market Fortnite to those kids because
No.
it's still violence
Right.
and shooting.
But it's
Parents,
free.
But it's free, so they're like, yeah, sure, play it.
sure, play it.
I don't have to
we
buy
used to
it.
see parents freaking buy their kids Grand Theft Auto 3 back in the day when they were
Right.
10 years old. So I mean,
Right.
Yeah, now it's like, can I have Grand Theft Auto 6? Yeah, no. This is for me.
Well, no one has Grand Theft Auto 6 yet.
The best meme I've ever seen for gaming is like back in my day. I want to buy this game. No, you can't. Why? It'll make you stupid. And now, I want to buy this game. No, you can't. Why? It sucks. Play this one.
I think actually that argument that you said will make you stupid. Actually, personally, I think it may be smarter
Yes.
because we go back to problem solving.
Yeah.
You know, when I was a kid, I had a problem with reading, and I didn't realize until I was, a little bit older that my mom kept giving me comic books, and she kept buying it all the time, and I was like, wow, she's always buying me comic books.
She's so cool.
She's so cool, but she was doing it to improve my reading, and it did. It actually was,
Oh man,
my amazing
like,
was, yeah.
Like they actually use proper language and text and grammar in gaming. It's not like they abbreviate.
Gaming is
Right.
really underestimated for what it does. Like it's
Oh,
not
yeah.
being used to help elderly people keep their brains functional.
Absolutely,
The
yeah.
biggest misconception about gaming is that it alienates people.
Right.
The reality is that so many people became or broke out of their introverted shell because of
True.
of gaming, whether it was World
Yeah.
of Warcraft, Call of Duty, even fucking playing sports games online. Like
Yeah.
I became so much more of a social person playing Counter-Strike, playing
Right,
NHL
right.
online. Like
Like Madden.
I never played Madden because I'm a fucking retard.
Very.
That's because of concussions.
Well,
Actually, with
people that are still playing Madden today, no matter how many times they copy and paste it and try to cheat them out of their wallet, they must have had a few
since you're
concussions.
the youngest of us, when you were playing Counter-Strike, were you one of those toys like, I fucked your mom, I fucked your mom?
No, because
Yeah,
I
he
wasn't.
was.
Again, I wasn't a
He
fucking
was.
retard.
Yeah, why would he say that when he could just teabag them?
No, I didn't.
Teabag,
I
teabag.
didn't have Halo.
Retard Radical. New nickname.
Oh. Everyone
Now who
needs...
needs the aloe vera?
Yeah, the elevator says
Been
that.
trapped. You've been trapped.
Should I just bend over now?
I'm not putting the aloe vera in. Someone else will do it for me.
What's that, Anthony Weiner's here? Oh god, you're in trouble. Oh my god. You're in total
But
trouble.
that's the thing, like,
Wiener.
it's amazing that so many people look at games as being a solitary thing. Where
Right.
it's like, I know that my parents used to give me hell all the time when I'd be playing online and talking to my friends and be like, "You're being really loud." I'm like, aren't you the same people that tell me to get out of the house because I need to socialize?
Right.
It's that weird thing where it's like some people just don't see it.
Did you guys watch the Netflix movie on League of Legends?
Oh
No.
no, I want to see that.
Watch it; it's really cool.
Have you seen the one called Trump American Dream? It's about me.
It's the best.
I heard it is totally shit.
Oh.
Retard Radical. You're wrong. It's true.
No, they bring up kind of the point. So there were two guys that kind of founded the company, Riot, right? And so basically they were kind of saying the same thing. One was actually a jock; he was like a quarterback, but still loved playing video games. And the other one was more like an introvert, but he was kind of like had business mentality. And throughout high school, their parents were like, "You're becoming stupider. You're becoming dumber. Why are you doing this? Go outside and don't play video games." And the question was, the interview asked them, well, now that you guys are worth billions of dollars, what do they think now? Well, now it's a different story. It's like if
Money
you
changes a lot.
Oh,
absolutely, and if we look at the careers that video games create, so you have, obviously, you make video games, but then you stream video games, you esports.
Esports is going to be common. Like I people disagree with this, and I even disagree.
It's
with
going to have its own
Elon.
channel soon.
No. It will be in the Olympics. One day, esports
That,
will be.
that
number
I
two.
don't think it will. Because
I don't think it should be, but I think it will be.
I think it
because
will
that
be
money is
too.
undeniable.
I think they'll have their own Olympics. I don't think they'll be in
No,
the Olympics
no,
itself.
they'll-
Is curling in the Olympics?
Because if
Winter
yes,
Olympics?
yes.
I think video games are gonna. I
Synchronized
think they're gonna get
swimming
there.
is the Olympics.
Yeah.
I think you can
They'll
justify.
They'll start.
Yeah.
It'll be Wii Fit.
Yeah.
Wii Fit in there. It'll be
Right,
like
right,
the
right,
Wii
right.
Yoga.
Right,
When
right.
you look at the Olympics too, like they will not want to stay away from that money because the money train is
Oh,
getting
yeah.
bigger and bigger. Like Dota and League of Legends, like they'll have
Oh, yeah.
$1 million+ pots now.
What's Dota?
It's
League
Val-
of
it's
Legends
basically
made by
Valve's
Valve.
like League of Legends.
Yeah,
okay.
so
No,
what
I
it-
didn't know if it was an acronym or something.
So it was,
If
I
it-
think,
if it
World of
actually is,
Warcraft's
like-
kind of extension to make it like MOBA. So that's where it started.
okay.
But last year, the top three sports that made the most money, or the athletes, the second one was Novak Djokovic, tennis player. The first one, I don't know the name, but it was an
Serbian tennis
esports.
player.
Serbian tennis player. But it was esports.
Probably Korean.
So it's insane. So the first time that esports, like a player, was actually made more money than Messi or
Yeah.
Ronaldo or
Korea, that's their national sport.
Right.
StarCraft is literally like that's what Korea is known for. Like, that's what they go nuts with.
I watched a clip of this weird dating show in Korea where it was a
Very
girl
weird.
and she had to
It's,
pick between four guys.
Right.
And there was a super cool guy on the end, leather jacket, looked
Yeah.
super awesome. Went through, okay, what do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? What do you do for a living? The fourth guy was a Dota player, and the girl fainted and was like in love instantly.
Yeah.
And he's like in a leather jacket, he's like, Like Dota.
Like
was
a big
insane.
StarCraft,
Yeah.
Legends, or Dota player in Korea is the same as us looking at a fucking like Connor McDavid. That's what it is in South Korea.
Yeah.
So
Totally bizarre.
it's big there.
Yeah.
Asia's having a scene. Obviously,
Yep.
here in North America, it's having a scene.
Yeah,
And it's only going to get bigger. Like there's
absolutely.
It's more money than the NFL.
Yeah.
It's like I know people
That's
roll their eyes
crazy.
at that, but that's going to
A
happen.
lot of
I agree
athletes
with the
are
money
missing.
part. I just think
Oh, it will be bigger than the like. That's the same thing too. There will be eventually be an esports organization that will actually be much bigger.
Well,
than the NFL.
they filled the Staples Stadium, which is like what 60,000 people
Yeah.
for Leagues of Legends
Because here's the
tournament.
thing.
Yeah.
That's
the
huge,
NFL
yeah.
That's
is
huge.
a regional sport. A video game can be international.
And that's the point. What they kind of talked about in the documentary. They said NFL is kind of like American thing, right? Like North American,
America.
Now,
right?
can
America.
an esports tournament top the World Cup? That's the challenge because soccer
Right.
is also an international sport. It's really the only international sport.
No,
I
I'd say
think it
basketball's
will.
up there too.
I will
Not
because
as
all
much,
these
I mean, like,
generations are.
Everyone,
Yeah.
like the World Cup is the biggest thing. There isn't like a basketball.
they-
the FIBA
I'll say-
Championship is nothing like even Euro.
But I think at one point there's gonna be the younger generation because until like if I talk to my father, there wasn't movies when they're growing up. Maybe they went to the theater, but it was they were watching soccer, right?
Yeah.
So I think right now, if you look at Europe is nuts about Leagues of Legends.
Yeah.
So eventually it's gonna be to the point where it's gonna be more about video. They're not gonna be outside kicking a ball.
And again, like we said earlier, 20, 30 years down the road,
Yeah.
when the media and the politicians that are at the top are going to be understanding of this too,
Right.
you're going to see a lot more networks be okay with it. Because I remember the Score, before it was became a part of Sportsnet, they used to have Halo all the time on
Yeah.
it.
Oh really?
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I remember as a kid, like I go to my grandmother's house and we put on the Score, and there'd be a Halo like championship thing going on.
Oh wow.
My other thing is this is my personal thing. When I get really bored quickly watching video game tournaments, like I saw there was a Mortal Kombat one on, I was like, oh, this would be cool to see. I'll be like,
That's the thing.
I feel like
For
playing
most
Mortal
people-
Kombat instead.
For most people, they can handle it, but there are the people like myself, like you, where all I do when I watch esports is I just want to play a game.
Right.
Yeah.
That's my
True.
thing. But there are so many other people there that love it because it's a game that they love, but they're not
Yeah.
good enough to get that far. So
Yeah.
it's like we have a buddy of ours, Kyle, who's a big Rocket League guy, but he loves watching
really?
the fucking championships because
Really?
it's like 10 tiers above where you could ever hope to be. It's that thing
I'm
too.
going to totally blow your mind right now.
Yes.
About the value.
Please don't blow me, Trump. I don't want that.
Oh.
Totally perverted. And I'm not a pervert. It's true. The overall
Well.
average value of an NFL team, because we're talking about it's going to be more.
It's about $1 billion.
Way more.
Right.
Wrong.
Okay.
We were talking about how it's going to be esports is going to totally blow it away. The average value of an NFL team is $2.86 billion, and increased 11% year over year from 2019 on. That's what they expect. The 2.86 billion. So think of how many teams. 2.86 billion. Are we talking esports is going to be worth more overall?
If they eventually get to the point
But-
of actually have a proper organization for these things, yes.
I think-
Because they're like you said, we have esports players that are
Yeah.
making more money than the athletes
I think so.
themselves.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
eventually, as it keeps turning and more people become aware of it and become more open to the idea, because there's obviously a lot of older folks
So you're
today.
suggesting that there's going to be mass world acceptance and viewership and involvement in esports?
Yes and no. Yes,
Yeah.
well, no, because again, there's always going to be the bitter old fucks that don't understand or don't want to understand and will say no.
Well, there might be
But the
people who
same,
just
there are
aren't
going to be a bunch of
interested.
bitter old fucks that are also going to see the money train that comes with it.
Yeah.
Because again, there's a lot of things that business owners don't actually like, but it makes them money.
Absolutely. So look at like a lot of athletes right now, like Jordan, and I don't know. There's lots of like NFL guys who are actually investing in esports.
Yep.
Right, they're seeing the
Shaq.
opportunity. Shaq, that's right.
Pornhub even you porn had its own team for a little while.
I know they.
like
Your porn.
Your-
versusporn.com.
Like legit, like everybody sees it.
No, it's .ca. Do you in Canada?
Oh,
But
right.
do you think people will want to watch a game but not play it?
I do it.
As
Yeah.
I've already seen with the
personally
numbers,
don't.
you just take a look at Twitch streams. You see 100,000+ people watching a League of Legends quarterfinal, let
Yeah.
alone even the World Championship.
Yeah.
There's enough people that will, and as soon as it just keep, because it's inevitably going to keep growing. Because again,
Yeah.
once games consistently open up to more players and more people have internet capability to do it as well, as we keep getting bigger and bigger as a technological society, the door just keeps opening further and further. To the point that, like I said, one day, it may not be like, it'll be a very slow build, but it will eclipse what we look at as national sports today, like the NHL.
Well, I think it'll
MLB.
definitely eclipse the MLB because the
MLB is an old sport.
It's
the average
dying.
fan is like 55.
I think, and I might be quoting this wrong, but I think from the documentary they said something like 1/10 of the world's population played League of Legends.
I mean,
I'd believe it.
So that's insane.
I wouldn't
Like, in
necessarily
this group,
believe
I
it,
played
but
it.
I could even believe like
I
one tenth of the entire world
That's
population
insane.
are gamers.
And that absolutely,
Yeah.
absolutely, yeah,
So
absolutely.
again, because inevitably, unless we destroy our fucking whole human race, as we keep building and building, and more tech keeps coming into smaller
Right.
countries that don't have it,
Right.
you just keep unlocking more people with the capability to play.
Yep.
If we can ever solve the money problem where people can afford to buy more games, again,
Right.
it just opens up the market further. And again, once you get the old like dumbasses out, and you eventually bring in new blood,
Yeah.
they'll look at that train and say, "I like that." Somebody eventually on, whether it's here in Canada, whether it's SportsCenter, or whatever, or whether it's
Right.
somewhere in the
Well,
States, like it's TNT.
I think
or,
it's the athletes that are going to make the change because they're the ones who are.
They're also
in
allowed
our-
to have the personality too. Esports
Mm-hmm.
personnel, like it's underrated just how like
Right.
it's almost like watching boxing with some of these personalities.
Right, right.
Like there's especially like my one scope of knowledge with esports is Smash, and there are guys where you either fucking love this guy or you want this guy fucking dead. Like there's
the
this
whole-
one guy Leffen
Yeah.
who is one of the most notorious in the Smash community who in his early days was a fucking prick. Let's not sugarcoat it. He was a prick.
Yeah,
And again, rags to riches sort of story. Eventually, he was really good, would kick so much ass, but kept getting knocked down by the big four.
right.
And his goal was to keep eclipsing him. And eventually, he went away for a while because he got in trouble saying some shit, as you do as a person on the internet. It's impossible not to.
Right, right.
And he finally starts coming back, and he's chill a little bit more. And all of a sudden, like he becomes this more polarizing. Like people either like love him or hate him. He almost becomes like a John Cena, or like.
So you can't see him.
No, that's different. It's like the kind of thing where you either boo him or you cheer him, and it's like a mixture of both.
Yeah.
And honestly, like people look at that as something that you shouldn't have. That's the best thing to have because it means everyone's involved.
Right, right.
And as we keep going forward, because you look at what the NHL does, how many NHL personalities are there aside from say a PK Subban?
Actually, it's hilarious.
It's PK and maybe Brad Marchand because he licks people's faces.
Actually, it's hilarious. There was a Bulldogs player on the news the other day.
This is
and-
like minor league hockey for people who don't know
Yeah,
what we're talking about.
and so my mom's watching the news, and she's like, "This guy's so weird." I'm like, "He's a hockey player. They don't have personalities. They're robots. If you watch any hockey interview, this is literally how it goes. Like, he's just so awkward."
The NHL do not want them to have personality.
Because
That is
apparently
true.
it's this
Period.
weird like Don Cherry apocalypse thing where they have to always be in suits, be fully professional. It's like, dude,
It's the image of the league.
you
That's
skate
the image
on
they
ice
want.
and
Right.
destroy people with body checks.
Right.
How
Yeah.
professional is this?
Yeah.
But it's
They're
the same
trying to
thing. Like,
market it. It's
other than
Yeah.
basketball, really, like football has its characters, but they still try to shy away from like the people like say all the over the top
Right.
celebrations and stuff. They still kind of stay away from it.
Yeah.
Basketball's really the one league where I think guys are really allowed to have a lot of
They
personality.
actually have
It's
they have
the
toned down
really
on
the
football they have toned down in football of the excessive celebration penalties, so they're allowed to do more of the fancy celebrations.
But it's still like people still call the NFL the no fun league for a
The
reason.
NFL, MLB, and NHL, it's about the brand overall. It's not about the individual, it's about the collective. And that's just the way those leagues are.
And in
They
the
have an
NBA, it's
image.
about where the money's coming in, like China.
Well,
Sorry,
I-
China.
Well, it wasn't until recently that Adam Silver went and defended the general manager of the Houston Rockets. So,
Well, yeah, because he straight up said,
Is it
and
really
I love
about
this
the money
quote, where
overall?
LeBron wanted
Well,
him
I mean,
to be
LeBron's a
punished.
total sellout. I mean, he criticized total sellout.
Like Adam Silver was just like,
I mean-
I let you guys say whatever the fuck you want about Trump,
Yeah.
and I didn't punish
See,
you. So you're gonna ask me to
LeBron
punish a
James-
guy who said something that has nothing even to do with
It's
our
true.
fucking scope of the
Right.
word.
It's true. LeBron James might say, I'm an African American, but we know he's just really green. That's all.
But going all the way back, like with esports, because
Yeah.
I mean, let's be honest, most of the people that are gamers have a bit
I'll
of a
probably
weird
buy
personality
it.
to them
I'll
anyway.
probably buy it. You'll work for me someday.
That's true.
If you're alive by then.
So
Trump
at
Coliseum-
some point,
Trump Coliseum,
I would
police
not be
force.
surprised if even 5 years from now, you'll have a guy that is more polarizing and more well known than most stars in like a certain sport.
Antonio Brown.
I don't think
Right,
you're like.
so
I think it's going to be a lot longer before you have like you'll know like more people will know this one League of Legends player, assuming
Right.
the game's still going, than they would know the biggest star
So-
in the NFL.
so-
But
Look at some of the YouTubers like Rice Gum. I don't know if you guys are
Rice Gum,
right.
Yep.
So he was like what Call of Duty? Was he Call of Duty? Where did he start?
think
His
so.
he was
most
a
of them started in that.
streamer, right? Twitch,
Yeah.
and now he makes music, right? So he makes music. So and he's a big name.
I mean, I don't know
Like
if
the Sasha
Porn.
Grey, he started in porn and transitioned into movies.
that was quite the same thing.
Oh, it
But he
is.
started
Just
in
don't
movies.
feel.
I don't
so
know
big.
if he's the top YouTuber still, but PewDiePie.
PewDiePie is.
He's got what 100 million
Huge.
followers.
Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
insane.
Yeah, he just hit
100
it.
million followers.
But like off the top of my head, you got
Phenomenal.
guys like him. You got Markiplier. You have Terrorizer. You have Vanoss. You have all these guys that are like just fucking massive, and all they do is play games.
Right.
And it shows you that the market is going because they see these guys for what they are, which is just guys like you and me.
Yeah.
They're just you and me turned up to 11. That's
Right.
what they are.
Right.
And that's a hell of a lot more
Mm-hmm.
interesting to people than it is seeing a guy like a LeBron James, who, yeah, he's a big star, but he's like a class of his own.
Right.
We can't look at LeBron and see what we see in us.
Mm-hmm.
We can look at a PewDiePie or a Vanoss or even smaller guys that got like 50K, and we'll look at them and he's like, you're just like me. You found a way to succeed, and we can pull from that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas, like, I can't associate myself with a guy like Novak Djokovic. I can't associate myself with,
Mm-hmm.
as much as I'm a big Leafs guy, I don't see anything from me and Austin Matthews.
Right.
But I watch some guys on YouTube that are just small-ass YouTubers, and I see me in them, and that makes a connection that you normally wouldn't see with that.
And I think that also goes back to the whole. I think you mentioned before, like the Marvel universe, cinema universe, because if you look at the action stars from the 80s or early 90s, it was like massive guys like Arnold and
Arnold and Stallone.
exactly.
Like,
Exactly.
don't get me
But,
wrong, they're still all pretty massive.
so they are, but if you look at like the superheroes now, like the superhero movies, like most of them are not, right?
Tom
they have
Holland. Literally, Spider-Man.
Right.
They're toned. They
Yeah,
definitely
they're
hit the
toned.
gym.
I mean,
Right.
he's got the ass, of a ballerina.
Spider-Man's always been a wimp. I'm just gonna say it. What a wimp.
so.
All right, easy there, J. Jonah Jameson.
He's a menace.
So yeah, so you're right. Yeah, it does appeal to people now more, and that's why it is so popular.
And you even see it with like when you see like fans of going to VidCon and just seeing their favorite YouTubers there, and just
Right.
it's like watching what you would see at like the Much Music or the MTV Awards, where
Yeah.
Bieber comes out on stage and they flock to that.
Right,
The
right.
difference is they're not flocking to that guy at VidCon just because it's Justin Bieber. It's they look at him. It's like not only is it a guy that they idolize, but it's also a guy that they feel like there's a connection to because
Yeah.
they really do feel like just normal people that just
Yeah.
happen to do something big.
Well, it's the whole thing where it's a self promotion theory. If you saw, like say for example, Connor McDavid on the street, would you go say hi?
You'd almost be nervous to.
Yeah, but you would probably make an attempt to be like, hey, big fan, hope you have a great season. Like you would want to. But a stranger, probably not. It's because the person's in your face so much, is exposed so much. It's like you know who they are. It's the same thing when you see someone in the Marvel and the MCU. Like if you saw Chris Hemsworth, like
I'm right here.
yes, there's an ongoing Thor joke with him. If you see Chris Hemsworth, you'd probably be like, hey, you're Thor.
I'd be more like,
Didn't you used to be married to Miley Cyrus? Oh no, wait, that's your brother.
but like I even noticed it. Like I remember when I was working for Mohawk College, and we used to do OHL or AHL hockey games at that point because Hamilton was still the minor league affiliate for Montreal. And I remember one day seeing Doug Gilmour because he was the coach of the assistant coach of the Marlies at one point. Couldn't get myself to say anything. A year later, I'm working for Rogers in Mississauga doing either the Steelheads or the Brampton Battalion. He was coaching Kingston. Saw him again, and I just said hi to him. That's all I could do. Just couldn't do it. But I go to Con Bravo for the first time ever, and I see JonTron, who was a massive YouTuber at that time. I had a fucking conversation with the dude. No problem.
You met JonTron?
Yeah. I've met JonTron. I've had a conversation with Angry Joe.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
Like, so I've met these guys, and it's nothing. It's just like talking.
I did a shot with Doug Gilmore.
Like,
It's also in the context of, I think, what
That
you
is
said.
awesome.
and it's also like,
Yeah.
they're normal people, so you don't have that same fear.
Right.
Like, I don't want to bother them. Like,
Right.
when we were
right.
waiting for the Watch Dogs demo, a guy from the TSN Bar Down YouTube crew just came running past, and I just said hi to him, even though I knew he wasn't hurt. Just like, hey, this stuff's awesome. I wouldn't have done that if I saw the same guy who was like, if I see, I don't know, fucking, like Austin Matthews just running down, like just walking down the street, I wouldn't think once to say hi to him. Even though
Yeah.
like a million other people would be too busy trying to get selfies with them.
Yeah.
But to me, it's
Makes
like,
sense. Yeah.
you're a big name. Like this is probably your 2
If
seconds
I,
to
if I
chill.
saw
like,
if I saw Kate Burness, I'd probably be like, marry me, please.
yeah, and
That
then
would
she
go
put a
well.
restraining order.
Total babe.
Kate Burness.
Well, sorry, I rephrase that. She would kick you in the nuts and then put the restraining order.
True.
Also gets to see her again.
On her Twitter handle, it would say #MeToo.
I'm the one who got kicked.
Hashtag meant to?
Hashtag deserved it.
Hashtag so.
We're on the way for him.
Hashtag you can't afford me.
Hashtag you're not
You're
worth
buried.
it.
This is going to keep going. So,
Yes.
I guess at this point we're 2 hours in, so you know what? We'll probably cut this off here. So, I guess in closing, what's your big goal? Like, obviously, finishing this is
Right.
a big thing now. But like, what's the big end game for you? Like, what do you really want out of
The
this
North
as a
Wolf
developer?
Empire.
Honestly,
Like,
it's,
other than working for EA, because we'll shut you down on that one.
no. Honestly, my end goal is really to put Hamilton on the map, and no, it's the honest truth. I really want to make something here. Like, there's a lot of kids who are finishing college. Video game development is becoming so popular in schools. When I was there in EGLX, so many people approached me saying, "Hey, look, I'm not looking." Some obviously asked for a job. They gave me their resume and so forth. But a lot of them actually said, "Look, I'm getting into game development. Give me some pointers, right?" What I would like to do is create Hellbound, create a bunch of different games, but really put Hamilton on the map in a sense of kind of from from the creating games to potentially YouTubing, streaming, and all that.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah, thank you
Really
guys.
great, man.
So I think that's going to do it. So thank you so much for coming out and like chilling with us. Because I mean, honestly, this is our first real guest. This is the first interview I've ever given. So that was a fun challenge
Yeah.
for me.
Awesome.
So
Guys, thank you for having me. This was a blast.
so
Yeah,
then
I
so
love
to
it.
cap this off.
This was
So
really fantastic.
once more, tell us what you got coming and where we can find you, including like how we can follow you for more stuff on Hellbound.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, so I'm creating Hellbound: The Awakening. I just partnered with Steam, so it should be available on Steam soon. You can follow me on, if you go on my site, www.hellboundtheawakening.com. You can subscribe to the newsletter, and then I can send you all the links. But yeah, I'm on Twitter and Instagram. On Twitter, I do actually post daily, kind of as I'm progressing with the game, and I do have a small YouTube channel where I do once in a while talk about some of the stuff that I'm working on. But yeah, Twitter is probably the best way to find me.
Awesome.
And I think at Twitter it's like a Hellbound_game. So
Alright,
So, yeah.
so with that being said, guys, so as per usual, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe to the channel for more content. Obviously, share this up with your friends, especially because as this is a great conversation about just game development as a whole, the industry. That was a really interesting conversation. Fucking took a lot away from this. Same deal. If you're listening to this in audio version, you can, if there is an option to get a 5-star rating on this, or again, share this with people, give it a like.
Please do.
We are trying to get a
Yes,
hold of.
please.
I'm finally getting a hold of Anchor to see if we can get on Apple Podcasts because it's taken a lot longer than it was supposed to. So hopefully, because we're getting a fair amount of views now. Like it's starting to the numbers starting to finally start moving, which means we're releasing enough that people are catching it. So hopefully, now that we're going to start doing stuff like this. I mean, you're not the only person we've been talking to that we're hoping to bring in and talk
Right,
to as well.
good.
So
You are the first.
thank you very much. I feel
you
special.
You broke the podcast interview cherry.
Everybody remembers
And
their first.
also, everyone, make sure to follow us on social media on Instagram. You can find us at VCR.podcast.
Yeah, we got everything in the description as well. If you're watching on YouTube, that includes all our social media contacts, as well as our Discord channel, which it's literally just a dumbass chat room where we just post random shit that
Cool.
we want to talk about. So just to chill, and even if you're not even a fan, like just come in here and just talk shop with us. Like it's just a shit show, just talking about games.
Yeah.
Yep.
So that being said, guys, thanks for either watching us on YouTube
Awesome.
or listening to us on the audio podcast, and
Yeah.
we will hopefully see you in either next week or the following week after that. So cheers.
Just.